Welcome to episode 154 of the Necronama.com. The Necronama.com is proud to announce that we've partnered with the Horror Writers Association and the Stanley Hotel and Gemma Amore and Laurel Hightower to bring you the official StokerCon pre-party. We want you to join us on May 10th, 2022 at the iconic Stanley Hotel, where horror authors including Stephen Graham Jones, Gabino Iglesias, Haley Piper, Gemma Amore, and Laurel Hightower will be reading some of their works. Additionally, the No Sleep podcast will perform a 1-hour live version of their award-winning horror fiction podcast. There will be meet and greets, ghost hunting, and a lot of drinking with authors. You're not going to want to miss it. A link to ticket information and room packages is available in the liner notes of this episode. The Necronama.com is now a proud affiliate of Libsyn, one of the top podcast hosting networks in existence. See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 free months of podcasting services with Libsyn. Get your show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get critical audience-building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, everywhere with Libsyn. Check our show notes for the unique promo code and get podcasting. Now in their 18th year, Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003. Offering a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, and cult classics. Officially licensed collections include titles like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Evil Dead, Creepshow, Jaws, the Halloween franchise, and so many more. Head on over to fright-rags.com. Make sure to sign up for their SMS and email newsletter to never miss a drop. Listeners get 10% off when they use the code NECRO10, all caps, at checkout. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And the big twist of this episode is I'm actually recording 2 podcasts at once.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of this podcast. And I haven't said this in a while, but, you know, whatever. I live in Mississippi. You can't scare me.
You know, it has been a while since you said that. I didn't even notice. Huh. Used to be a daily occurrence around here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when we had the Klan marching in town, I definitely said it. And since there were so many things reminiscent in this film, I felt the need to do that, considering that this movie is filmed in Georgia, but it's supposed to take place in Louisiana. So.
Well, very nice. I didn't look up where it was filmed, so that's good to know.
You didn't notice the big peach at the end? Filmed in Georgia. You didn't notice that?
No, I don't watch credits. I don't know how to read.
Oh, right, trust me. When we get to the credits, I got something for you. But let's get to the guest. I'll shut up.
We have a guest? Oh, my God. Okay. All right. So Rhonda Jackson Garcia, a.k.a. RJ Joseph, is here today. Thank you for coming on the show, Rhonda.
Welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you both for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, sweet. We're excited to have you. And I'm excited that you picked this film. But before we get into that, do you want to tell our listeners a bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a creative and academic writer based in Texas. I love Don's introduction because I'm known for saying that. I live in Texas. There's not anything that you can do to run me off, right? And so I have a kinship with that. And I write stuff. I teach stuff, mostly creative writing, English lit classes. But right now, I'm looking forward to my first horror short story collection coming out in August with The Seventh Terrace. I'm super excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. And then so this month there were two things that came out that I had short stories in. The anthology The Dead Inside by Dark Dispatch,
Yes.
and the Slasher collection or anthology that came out by Candisha Press. So those are super, super exciting too.
Very cool. And you have a story in the anthology that we're putting together for our Stanley Hotel event. So that's awesome as well.
Yes. I had a lot of fun with that one. It did a lot of shape shifting on me. And so, it was really the latest change, the version that you all got was actually heavily influenced from my recent trip to Berlin. And so once I was there and things started happening, I was like, you know what, this story is different from what I thought it was going to be. So let me just roll with it. Let's just let it do what it's going to do.
I always find that fascinating with writing. Like, I am a diehard outliner, and it still doesn't matter. At some point, the story is like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're doing this thing. You know,
right,
but it's like, I'm already on the road. It's too late now. So,
right. Yeah,
but yeah, when you wrote and told me that, I was like, that is so cool. Like, how life just changes things, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it changed it like just very fundamentally. So, here we are.
Well, a great man once said, life finds a way.
Yes,
oh, man. We're back there again.
Great man.
Well, awesome. So, Rhonda, why did you pick this film other than it goes heavily in hand with your short story that they can't read yet?
Yeah. Well, I felt like when this movie came out, I just felt like it did not get the attention that it needed, or not the kind of attention that it needed. All I saw was stuff that was just ripping it to shreds. And I thought, okay, wait, but I mean, can we have a talk about the things that it did well? And that's not to say I didn't see anything positive about it, but there was not enough. And so I thought, you know what? Any chance I get besides in my academic work, because of course I'm always talking about, Black women in horror. That's kind of my thing. That's my shtick. But I thought, it would be great to be able to actually just talk about this to somebody besides my husband and my close friends who kind of get tired of hearing me talk about that.
I know that feeling. My wife is like, can you just watch a movie? And I'm like, no, I cannot.
Yes, we can't. We just can't.
So, Don, I know you were talking before we started recording about how this was supposed to come out and the pandemic pushed it off. Do you want to touch on that real fast?
Oh, my gosh. Rhonda hit on several of the things that were concerned for me, because when it came out, I was looking forward to it. Like, I was hyped about it from the first preview, because I was like, oh shit, the preview is confusing. Like, they're not giving anything away. But I'm like, okay, is it the future? Is it in the past? I was like, are they doing Octavia Butler style storytelling here? I was in. I'm like, I got to see this. And then it wasn't shown here when it actually did come out. And then there was like, I guess it got released on Apple TV or something. It had like a weird time when it was going to be released, and then it got pushed back. And so when it came out, then it got hit. But we were in the middle. I don't even think I'd had my first vaccination at that point. I'm like, I'm not going to go to the movie theater. I'm going to wait until I can stream it. And then it was kind of the same thing. I knew people who went to go see it, but of course I'm going to see something completely different than they did. And they went to go see it, and they're like, well, I really didn't like it. They had this and this was included. I was like, well, what did you like? And they didn't tell me anything specifically that they liked about it. It was more focused on, some things in the movie that were problematic. But I would argue you have to have that there, considering the subject matter, because so many people historically have run away from talking about that.
Yes.
You have to. I mean, this is not one of those things where, I guess we should do a trigger warning for sexual assault and suicide and things like that. But having been, I still am. Being an educator who specifically talks about 19th and 20th century race, gender, and ethnicity, you can't not talk about the violence that takes place, especially on Black women's bodies in the antebellum period, in the Reconstruction period, in the Jim Crow period, in the current period. because
exactly
all you end up doing is desensitizing people to other people's experiences. And then when it does get brought up, you get, which becomes the most annoying fucking thing to me, which is, oh my God, I had no idea this was going on. Yeah, you didn't have it. You didn't have an idea because we have state legislatures and governors going around saying you can't talk about this stuff or teach it. And if you teach about it on something like TikTok, you get a community guidelines violation.
Right.
Hang on, pause for a second. Did you get another violation after getting kicked off?
No. There were people who I know who posted about this stuff recently. Okay. I'm surprised. Like when I was talking about Dietrich Cooper Owen's book, Medical Bondage, Slaver's Metropolis, because I do book recommendations every now and then. Then I do like mini history lectures, Rhonda. Okay. And I got kicked off last year for a lecture about Reagan and how his policies, domestic and international and foreign, were problematic. But I started doing history lessons, I was worried about if I talk about X or if I talk about Y, what am I going to get hit with? Like I was even doing a live reading yesterday of a conference paper while I was presenting at the conference. And I kept thinking, like, what are they going to hit me with? I did get hit when I was doing a live stream while we were recording an episode, and they hit me for I think it was like bullying and harassment. I'm like, what the hell did I say? I'm like, we're talking about a movie. But
you probably said, James, shut up.
Yeah, I might have. But no, it's very telling that a movie that I'm gonna reference and only gonna reference because I've talked about it before. We covered it briefly. I guess we did a whole episode on it. But my estimation as far as the first feature-length horror film, which was Birth of a Nation, they made sexual assault a central theme because they made this argument that, interracial sex is not consensual ever. Especially if it's a black male and a white woman, it's never consensual. So it's always going to be rape. Meanwhile, if you flip it, there was loads of sexual assault and rape where white men engaged with black women, children, and black males. But that stuff is obviously not going to get taught in the K-12 environment. It's not really touched that much in an undergraduate environment. In many cases, you have to either see it in a documentary, which some people may not tune in because of the subject matter, or you're going to hear it in a graduate course. And so many people have no idea the amount of brutality that took place. But I'll shut up because I got a lot to talk about with this subject, this film. And it definitely pisses me off that this movie, and I wrote this down in my notes, this movie, if it hadn't been for COVID, would have been bigger than Get Out.
Damn.
Oh, I can dream. Like we can dream, right? I mean, it's like you're walking right inside of my head on this. I don't have the historical perspective. That's not my wheelhouse. I mean, I know what I know, but I'm not an expert, right? But everything you're saying, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, amen. Yes, amen. Yes, you're preaching to the choir. Yes. I think the thing that I found most striking was that it's not even mentioned. Like when we talk about like top horror movies in general, which that's not surprising to me because that Get Out seems to be a bit of an anomaly anyway. Because I've been around for quite a while. I'm kind of a seasoned woman. I'm a little bit, older. And so I've been engaging with this stuff for years and years and years. And so the fact that Get Out even gets on these lists, it still sort of surprises me. But when we talk specifically about Black horror, the top one, movies or, even with books, this movie never even gets touched. And mostly because, what is stated as the reason most of the time that I see is that there's too much senseless violence. It's torture porn. But I agree with you, Dawn. I mean, how do you talk about this time period? How do you talk about the things that are still happening without being very specific? Because when you just talk in generalities, that's kind of what got us where we are. Right? You're talking generalities. And so people kind of go, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that serious. You're just being dramatic. But when you show it in all its brutal detail, and it still isn't even like the tip of the iceberg of what happened, in these situations. And so, that's the biggest gripe that I hear about it, was that it was just senseless and all of that didn't have to happen. But I'm sitting there going, but first of all, let's just go back to the root of what horror is. And I've been kind of standing on the soapbox about this for the past few months. Horror is horrific. So if you can't deal with horrific things, then maybe the horror genre is not for you. And that's not to say that horror is monolithic. You can have quiet horror. You can have, a very comedic horror. There's this whole broad spectrum. But I mean, at its core, that's where these things belong. I, as a kid, I was very naive about these things. I always wondered why stories about like lynching, because again, I grew up here in the South. I was born in Texas. I've never left. Like, I'm still here. And so these are stories that my family told. These are newspaper clippings. These are things that I sought out on my own. And I always wondered, why is this stuff about lynching and racism and all of this violence against Black people, why is this not considered horror? Like, couldn't even find it in the true crime section. I'm like, so where does it belong? The only place I could ever find it was history. But I'm like, but it's still very horrific. Like, it still fits in this genre of darkness.
You know what? I'm going to answer that question by being vague about it as well, or just somewhat vague. Yeah. It's not considered horror because of who the horror genre has been typically catering to. I mean, historically, the target audience for the longest time was, I would just say, cisgender heterosexual males, right? I mean, that was like the wheel. That's why, like, especially in the 70s, 80s, like, you had a lot of gratuitous, like, nudity and things like that, because it was all about, the male perspective of, like, one, what's going to be scary, but then also, how do I get, what's going to distract you from the horror? And we got boobs. Oh, I completely forgot there's a killer that's out there. Meanwhile, like, my mom will watch a horror and she's like, they're only showing the boobs so people will forget that the killer's out in the streets or out in the woods. And I'm sitting there and my mom's like, this is so unbelievable. If your friends are missing, wouldn't you be worried? You wouldn't be trying to go get some. And I'm like, Mom, don't ever say get some in my presence ever again.
Right.
But I'll say straight out, I know a lot of men that would be highly distracted by boobs and forget there's a killer.
Well, and it's very telling because that's who the writers were catering to. But what you've seen probably in the last 20, 25, maybe 30 years, it's gotten a lot more sophisticated as you understand the audience is not going to just be young men, right? It's going to be people of all genders, gender identities, sexual orientation, backgrounds, ethnicities. There are going to be some universalities with that. But when it comes to something like, racialized violence, that's typically going to speak to the audience that would typically be the subject of that violence or recipients of that violence. So it's horrific to them. Whereas, I would just say like mainstream white audiences will look at it and say like, oh my God, that's so horrible that happened. And you would have a Black audience who would be then exchanging stories of, oh yeah, my great uncle told me about this lynching that took place in town, or this woman told me, or which I just saw this online. Somebody posted it. She was a caretaker in a hospice facility, where she said that this elderly white woman, was complaining about seeing a little boy in the corner of her room, and what she revealed was, this is an older white woman. What she revealed was it looked like the same boy that she had lynched when she was a kid, because she had made up a story about him stealing something from her.
Shut up.
Oh yeah. And so the nurse is and she was like, I'm not telling you where I live. I'm not even going to show my face. But this woman revealed to I'm not going to reveal what nurse it was, but this woman revealed to one of our nurses that she kept seeing a little boy in the room, and then revealed that she had lied about a little boy getting stealing, and he ended up getting lynched in their town. And she just went on about her life. So her fear was this boy coming back, whereas you had the real terror, which goes beyond just the violence. Right. The real terror of, I saw somebody hanged or burned or shot or dragged through the streets or whatever, and there's nothing I can do about it, because if I do anything about it or I say anything about it, I'm next.
Yes, you're
Or
next.
I understand that if I do what this person did, it could be something as simple as I didn't get off the sidewalk. That then I'm a target. I'm the one. Or
Yep.
in the case of Emmett
Yep.
Till, literally did nothing. The story was made up by Carolyn Bryant, who
Yep.
I hope she's
Mm-hmm.
been haunted for every day of her life.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I hope she never
Every
finds
single
peace.
moment. Not one shred.
Sorry,
And
James.
this is
No, this is all this is great. Keep going, man. I'm loving
yeah,
this.
and this is what kind of gets to the root of what you did mention earlier too, Don. Like I already understood that with Antebellum, it's centered on the story of a Black woman, and I understand that sort of raises people's hackles. Like there's something about being invested in Black women's lives or something that happens that just really makes some people very upset. It's unfortunate, but I kind of realized that there's this racial aspect, obviously, but there's also this sort of a gender aspect, that goes along with that whole thing. And so unfortunately they work together to kind of just make this movie almost invisible. And I hated that because I like you looked at the trailers at first and I was like, oh my gosh. So like, is it time travel? Like, what is it? Is it really a historical horror? Because I love historical horror, and I don't think that there's enough of it made. I get that it's expensive, but I love that. Like that's my shit. I love that, and so it's kind of it was exciting to me, and I thought, oh my gosh. And then there's Janelle Monáe, of course, and I'm like, well, yeah, I'm in. I'm all the way in, and when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything that I expected it to be. It actually was even better because it managed to shoehorn all these ideas and all these themes that not only that are interesting to me, anecdotally, but like, we actually have statistics that show some of this stuff, like how these things are horrific, what things kind of happen, to Black women, Black girls. And I was like, oh my gosh, this movie is all of that. But I just never got the response that I wanted about it. I never got the discussion that I wanted. I feel like it was shortchanged, and I'm like, what?
It was. I mean, there was
it
no.
Totally was.
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say this is one of those movies that, again, so many more people needed to see, whether you were going to be comfortable. And I get, there are a lot of people in the Black community that are. Sorry, James, not include you, because we've had these discussions before.
Dude, but this is the stuff that needs to be said. Stop apologizing to me.
No.
Keep going.
Well, not sincerely apologizing.
Good point.
You cannot talk here. Anyway, so
sweet, a week off.
But there's like a trauma fatigue and slavery fatigue in a lot of people in the Black community, because the complaints that I've seen from some of my peers when we were doing these films, as far as screening them for when I was teaching in person at ASU, when we were having these screenings for Project Humanities, one of the community organizations, or the Center for Study of Race and Democracy, we would have these discussions. Like, we would have packed rooms. Sometimes we would actually rent out the movie theaters. But we would have packed rooms where we were talking about these films. We did it with Nate Parker's version of, I shouldn't say his version, Nate Parker's telling of the Nat Turner Revolt in Birth of a Nation. Did the same thing with Get Out, did the same thing with Black Panther. Then we did like a double feature, but not the full movies, but we had a double feature of clips from Birth of a Nation, the D.W. Griffith film, and Within Our Gates from Oscar Micheaux. And we had this in-depth discussions about how the films were, the reach that the films had, the reaction that people had, the fact that, Oscar Micheaux is telling a much more authentic, truthful story about America and race in America, but he doesn't have the same reach as D.W. Griffith, who just basically makes, a Confederate's, dream of a movie. Like, it's somebody referred to it as all the Confederate memorials and films and stuff like that as Clantasia. And I'm going to stick with that. So it's not just
I dig it.
Yeah, Gone with the Wind, all that, it's Clantasia.
I love that.
So
yeah, I dig that.
Oh, I'm sticking with it. I can't remember who told me that. He said it about one thing, and I'm like, I'm using it for all of it now. But that's the one thing that I noticed with a good number of people, whether they were related to me, there were peers, people who would come to the events because they wanted to see films that weren't about the civil rights movement and films that weren't about slavery. And my argument with them was, we need to see these films. You only feel like there's oversaturation because now it's something that is being focused in on. And if it's not focused in on, it's not going to be talked about. It's not going to be discussed. There aren't going to be films made about it. Because within history, once you answer a question, you then have 10 more questions after that. So here at the University of Mississippi, one of the things I do is I coordinate and lead tours about the history of slavery on this campus. And the tour itself, when we started in 2019, or at least when I started doing it in 2019, is nowhere close to what it is now in 2022, because of the questions that have been asked, the questions that I've then asked the people who are doing research, to where I realized from my own research, and even within the field of history, talking about women in slavery is still new.
Yes, it is.
And so just talk about their experiences, because the way it's taught in K-12, the way it's typically taught in the university level, it's either absent of gender or it's assumed male, white male. It's assumed adult male as far as that perspective. The only time that women are included is if we're talking about the violence on their bodies, when there is a lot more to what took place in their lives than the violence that took place on their bodies, or I don't want to give the wrong person credit, but their bodies being the sites of violence.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
It's phenomenal how, you look at it with a different lens once you realize that these women have been typically left out of the discussion. Even if you look at a movie like 12 Years a Slave, you have Solomon Northrop's story, and then you have Patsy. And I'll be honest, I didn't give two shits about Solomon Northrop's story, about 15 minutes into his captivity, because I was so focused on Patsy. Right. I've seen the male slave story so many times. I'm like, I want to know what's going on with her. I want to know what happened to her before. I want to know what happened after, because I'm still sitting there. I'm like, yeah, Solomon, you're getting free, and that's great. But as an historian and as an audience member, I'm like, I'm invested in her story. Like, I broke down a couple of times during that movie. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you know which scenes typically break somebody. But just seeing that violence, that assault that takes place on her, makes you realize that happened to so many women in that system. And those women did not have a voice, just like you see the enslaved not having a voice, or at least when Janelle Monáe gives her lecture, how Black women are silenced for so many years. And I love how she throws and she's like, no, we're not going to be silent anymore. And you immediately see how that is a problem for so many people.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, because what we do get is, because I'm a writer. And so that means I read all kinds of stuff or write all kinds of stuff. And so the closest that I get to, let's say, a story of a woman that was enslaved is when you get like the Margaret Garner story. And then you only get to that because Toni Morrison wrote Beloved. But I mean, like, as a Black woman, but also as a mother, like, I'm thinking, we talk about rape, but we don't talk about, like, what about your babies? What about you exerting the only agency that you have in deciding to murder this baby? I mean, that is very harsh for some people to think about, but I'm thinking, you know what? I kind of feel that. I would love for that for it to come to that. But if I thought that my kids were going to be enslaved, I'd rather kill them. And then I would take on that guilt. Like, I feel that deep in my spirit, but we don't get those stories. We don't get the stories of, the enslaved women who had actually chosen mates. They had chosen husbands, but they still had to go and, they were still violated by, these other men. And it's like, you got to think about what that does to a person. I'm hoping, what I was hoping that happened from Antebellum was that we would get more of this. But then the tiny bit of a backlash ripple that came from it, I thought, oh no, nobody's ever going to talk about this again. And this is going to be terrible. And one of the things that I really appreciated was after finding out that this thing that was happening, like when they went to the president, right? Another thing that really stood out to me was how Dr. Veronica, she was very visible. She was very loud because she refused to be silent. And I dig that. I feel that. But I actually had so much fear for her. In seeing that, I had that fear that I have for myself. Like, I know what it's like to be a woman of a certain educational level, Black. People don't really want to give you your due. Like, they don't want to respect that. They say that we respect this education, we respect this. But when it's a Black woman, I mean, I tell you, I have had other professors literally close the classroom door, like in my face, as I'm trying to enter to go teach my classes after them. Because they don't know that I'm the professor. They don't think that I'm the professor. And, I'm kind of going, wait a minute. I have the student loan debt that totally shows that I'm the professor. Are you kidding me? Like, really? I mean, so there's these little things that happen, right? That the more visible you are as a Black woman, the more loud you are, the louder you are. There then gets to be this backlash of, we got to take her down.
Right.
And
you got to tone it down.
You got to tone it down. Yeah. Or it's like, we're going to put you back in your place. And this comes from some unexpected places, but there's usually places where you expect that it's going to come from. And so I was fearful for her. At that point, I was like, okay, wait now, girl, I know some bad stuff that happened to you, but in the past, because I'm still thinking that it's like a time travel, like it's a time travel type thing, right? But I was like, girl, some bad stuff about to happen to you in real life too, because like nobody wants to know that you're there. So they don't want to hear you. They don't want to see you. They don't want you being intelligent. They just don't want that. And so that's the thing that I even see in my writing. Like, even here recently, I was kind of commiserating with some friends that I've been kind of visible on Twitter because I've been doing a lot. People don't realize that this has been 30 plus years in the making, though. It's not like I just jumped up last week and wrote like 1,000 gazillion short stories and they just started being published right now. No, I've been writing them all that time. They just now started being published, though. That did happen. And so I kind of felt like that increased visibility. I stay anxious about it because I go, there's going to come a point when folks are going to get tired of seeing me. They're going to get tired of hearing my name. And that's going to come with a backlash. And sure enough, there are different things that have happened here in just the past month or so where I'm going, okay, well, I'm kind of too old now to shut up. So they're just going to have to get tired of hearing and seeing and bring the backlash, whatever. I ain't going nowhere. But with Dr. Veronica, even when she went out with her friends, and then there was that one scene in the restaurant with the waitress. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I was like, this girl, you're going to be in so much trouble because first of all, you are a dark skinned girl. You already know how they do us. And you talk it all slick at the mouth and to this white lady. And that is not going to be good for you. I was in fear of that. I was so fearful for them. And I thought, oh no, this is going to be just so terrible. And of course it did get like worse. But that was the moment when I thought, okay, well, I can kind of see how that made her a target. I mean, it's not justified that she was victimized, but I'm like, yeah, well, you're very visible. This is the kind of person they're going to target. And what I did find striking too, though, was that in the beginning part where they were in what we thought might have been the past, she tells the other lady, Julia, that they have to be quiet, that they have to assimilate. And so when they flipped to the present, I thought, okay, wait, so that's a change. That is a character change, which you expect growth in your characters. That's supposed to happen. But I remember thinking that it's terrible that what happened worked then. So they did manage to make her feel small. They did manage to make her feel like I will be more safe if they forget that I'm here. But it also made me sad because I think that there are times when we as Black women, we tell each other these things that are really not helpful, and I try really hard not to tell, especially not younger women like my daughters or any women that I are colleagues. I'm not going to tell you to do things the way that I was told to do them when I was coming up. Like, I grew up here in the South. Here in the South, they expect their women to be quiet and sweet and kind of stay behind the scenes. And I'm like, yeah, I never learned that part. But okay, but I stayed in trouble. I still stay in trouble because I just don't do that. And, I found it made me sad to hear her tell her that when the other lady was all about, but wait a minute, we got to get out of here. We got to do this. And she's all like, no, you need to just hold your horses and just kind of deal with this for right now. So that was very striking to me in that whole thing.
Well, you bring up the comment that takes place between Dr. Veronica and Julia, where, Julia makes that, she makes that comment. She says, what has that gotten us, in response to quiet is strong. Within the past, because my head was bouncing back and forth. I'm sitting there like, wait a second. This woman has a septum piercing. She's got a gold necklace. I said, something's not right here. I said, okay, well, maybe she's writing a story about this in the past, and she's making some symbolic thing that she gave this character. And then I realized, like, oh, she's not that kind of writer. She's psychological. I said, okay, well, maybe this is, a story that she had been told about her past and her family. And so my mind is going everywhere until the reveal happens. And I'm thinking, like, as soon as it starts getting to that point, I'm like, oh shit, she's about to be kidnapped and be put, somewhere. And then when I realized who she was, I was like, now all that stuff made sense. So I looked at my wife, and because she was watching it with me, and I said, especially when the husband pulls the necklace out of the shed, which is basically just a crematorium, but when he pulls the necklace out, that horrible scene. I looked at her and I said, I know this can't be the past, because an enslaved woman is not going to have a septum piercing. And then two, she's not going to have jewelry like that, she's allowed to, unless it was done for some device within the story. So I was like, something is eating away at me here. Like something. Yes. But I'm like, no, I'm still thinking, okay, well, maybe it's a time travel thing. And they're sending people, kind of like the Cosmic Slop. It was George Clinton's thing. Where it was basically like a 90s version of the Twilight Zone. It was very short lived. I think it was like one episode. But the one episode I always remember, or the part of that episode I always remember, is when the aliens came and decided that they were going to offer America a certain amount of money for their Black people. And they were like, oh, we're going to clean up your oceans. We're going to clean up your air. We're going to give you renewable energy. We'll do this. We'll do this. Just give us all your Black people. And so I was thinking, like, okay, well, maybe this is now in the future. Like, they're making a connection between slavery then and now slavery now. I was pleasantly surprised when the twist happened. But yeah, the whole idea about being quiet, that struck me when, she's given the speech, and it's not just about her being loud as far as vocally or just being vocal itself. I'm trying to pay more, especially because of one of the episodes we recorded recently. I started looking at her clothing, because nothing that she wore was muted. Right. Nothing that she wore. Even, when she goes to present, she's wearing this nice jumpsuit. And my wife was like, "Oh, I said, that's a badass suit. I love that." Yeah. And she loves Janelle Monáe. She's like, Janelle Monáe never looks like unkempt. She never presents herself as like, oh, I just threw this on. It always looks like she always presents it as like, oh, it's so natural to her, as far as like, she's not trying.
Absolutely. So effortless.
And it doesn't matter if it's in a movie or music video, interview, whatever. It always looks as though the clothes, I guess this is the same. The clothes are wearing her. She's not wearing the clothes. Like, the clothes need her to function. So
yes, I understand that. Yes.
It was that. It was her hairstyle choices, which I noticed the same thing was done with Candyman, where you had bonnets, you had hair. Yes. You had
Yes.
things that were not typically being shown. And I remember, especially in the last couple of years, there's been this whole, you shouldn't wear a bonnet in public because that's unladylike.
Right.
That's this. And I look at it as like, wear what the hell you want. Like, be unapologetically you in any situation. So you see how that she speaks up, and there's that one moment where she kind of doesn't speak up, and I was thrown aback because but then I was kind of drawn into the portrait that was behind the concierge at the desk. But I just loved how that happened. But then it seems as though she and Gabourey's character was oh gosh, I just had the name. Dawn, of course, to be able to remember that one. She's even louder and does not give a damn what you think about her, right?
Right.
So you got to factor in all the things that she would typically, and she brings this up, all the things that she typically would be dogged about, whether it's her body size, her body shape, her hair color, her hairstyle, and her skin color, right? As well as facial features. Yep. I'm watching her and I'm like, and this is nothing as far as like how I haven't felt about Gabourey or anything, but the confidence that her character had, made me go like, damn. Yes. Now that's a powerful woman right there. That is something that's going to get my attention, because she's like, I don't give a fuck what you think about me.
Absolutely.
Whether it was I'm walking in on my friend's yoga session. And she's like, and it just seems like the yoga instructor just gets quiet, starts rolling up the mat, and she's kind of like, I don't care what your schedule is. I'm here right now. I brought you your coffee, girl. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna do this. I haven't seen you in so long. I don't give a damn what's going on. You can finish this yoga shit some other time. I don't care. Right. And I'm sitting there like, damn, I want that to. No offense, James. I'm like, damn, I want her to be my best friend. Because even she recognized, because James and I have done this to each other before. We recognize when somebody is around us, like, and it's like, oh shit, I need to get out of this situation because this person keeps talking to me. And I was come over, it's like, oh, James, we got to go sign over here, man. Or he'll like, Don, we got to do this. And I love how she immediately did it at the presentation and the book signing. Right. And she's like, girl, she ain't coming to dinner with us. No, I knew what she was trying to do. So I pulled you away. You can thank me later for saving you. Yes. She's not coming. And I love the way this character shows visually and through her actions, shows what Janelle Monáe's character is teaching people to actually do. Exercise who you are, be proud, be unapologetic. You're not doing anything rude, because even when she's telling the guy, like, hey, we are champagne ladies. We're drinking champagne.
Oh, I loved that.
I was so ready for her to read him the filth. I was ready. But then she's like, and here's my number. Call me later. I was like, damn. That was a power move.
That was a power move. Like, that was a pimp move right there, for real.
Oh, like, even beyond that. Even beyond that, like her friend before then, she's like, oh yeah, I'm going to meet with fine Derek, or I can't remember his name, but this fine dude, I'm going to meet with him. And he's got a friend, which, always becomes kind of cliche thing. And she's like, well, what's his friend look like? Is he cute? Is he fine? Is he blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And then when she doesn't want to seek the friend, she's like, you know what? I'm going to go fuck him and then probably fuck his friend later. So, exactly. So, your loss.
Oh my gosh. And so a few reviews that I looked at were talking about how Dawn was like that stereotypical loud and brassy sidekick. And I was like, no,
she wasn't.
She was genuine.
Yes.
Like, and they're like, well, she's just the fat girl that's like the buddy to the skinny chicks. And I'm like, oh no, baby. If anything, if I had known who was supposed to be the star, I would have thought that it was her, because she owned that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and that's why I think that so many of the observations about these characters in this movie, they were so reductive. They didn't really go into a lot of depth. It just made people uncomfortable to see this Black, dark-skinned woman acting like that, like just being herself and owning herself and not being ashamed of it and not asking for apology or excuse. And so I also thought about the ideas that as a creator, as an academic, as a writer, how sometimes another conversation I have with my buddies a lot is that sometimes you have to take opportunities because you understand that they will help elevate you and catapult you to where you want to be. So when
Right.
Dr. Veronica took that speaking engagement, I was sitting there thinking, okay, she had to pick and choose her battles because, like, old girl that was talking to her was really, really slick at the mouth. She was being overtly racist, and
Oh yeah.
so she really had very big concerns. But that's a thing that we have to do as Black creators and academics. We always have to kind of weigh and pick our battles, right? We have to say, well, gosh, if I just turn down everything that came my way from somebody that was doing these performing these microaggressions or saying something that was crazy, like, you have to decide what you're actually going to fight, because otherwise we can't really make it in this world. So, some people will say, well, I don't want to be involved in that anthology if this person, that person is going to be in it. And then, you kind of go, okay, well, I understand. I mean, it's your choice. But by the way, what did they do? And they start kind of saying these things, and I'm going, okay, so that's not my line in the sand, though. So I'm going to submit anyway. I just need you to respect that, because I don't have a lot of opportunities that come my way like that. I have to kind of pick and choose. And I've decided that that is not a deal breaker. And so I'm going to do that. I have some friends who, and within their right, who will say, well, no, I'm not going to do that. But, when you have those kind of parameters, you also don't get to complain, that you don't have the visibility, you don't get the opportunities. You understand you don't have them because you make those choices.
Right.
And you kind of have to own that. Like, just like I have to own that there are people that say crazy stuff all the time. There are people that do things that are questionable all the time. And sometimes it's just us being human, making very honest mistakes, right? None of us are perfect. And so sometimes we put our foot in our mouth. It's not a thing. We're not being ugly. We're not trying to be harmful. And so, sometimes those mistakes are just that. Other times it's very purposeful and it's very willful. And I even get that. But I mean, again, we have to individually make these choices, because I understand that writing about the topics that I do, writing the Blackity Black stories that I do, I understand that there's going to be a certain amount of rejection that just outright comes with that. And so I have to pick and choose whether or not these are deal breakers. And so I couldn't even fault her for taking that gig, even though, old girl was very sus from the beginning. She had to do what she had to do. She kind of needed to secure that bag. She got that. She understood that.
Well, even then, it's like she snuck in, right? Because she's like, which publication are you with? And she's like, oh, I didn't say I was with anybody. She was there just to push her buttons.
Yes.
Because it gets revealed later on. She's like, my dad chose you.
Yes.
Like I didn't want you here because you were the one my dad wanted to be here, because you just wouldn't shut up. Like you just had to, open your mouth. You just had to say something.
Yes.
And all I saw at that moment, I think I even wrote it down. And this goes back with some of my gender study courses, my gender history courses. That was white Western feminism.
Oh,
right?
Oh man!
It was.
Listen,
it was. What was it? Patricia Arquette, like she did it at the Oscars a few years ago, where she gave her speech. It's like, we need to be paid equally, and then she went backstage, and I can't remember the full quote, but I'll just paraphrase it. But she told like Black and brown actresses, like, you need to help us get equal pay, and they looked there like, what the fuck you talking about? Help you? What do you mean help you? We're getting the lowest pay. Like, you need to help us. And when you would see, women of color themselves, especially Black women, you have that moment where it's kind of like, oh, well, why are you complaining? You at least have a job. Or I got into an argument with somebody about this a few years ago I think it was during the whole Oscar so white controversy, which wasn't a controversy, was truth. When you looked at the voting committee and not including people, or even people on the voting committee admitting they didn't even watch the movies because they said, well, I don't want to watch that. I don't really watch Black movies. I'm like, what do you mean?
Right.
Like, what do you mean by that? And this person was saying that, oh, you should be happy because Black people are being recognized. And I said, no, that's not the issue. We're talking about representation. And we're talking about the fact that people are being shut out, but then you're being thrown crumbs every now and then. She said, well, there's a Black woman who got an Oscar, back so. I said, Hattie Daniel got an Oscar for being a slave.
Yes.
Yep.
Not saying it wasn't a good performance.
Right.
And
that was literally the role. Yeah.
Right. And this was right after, or a couple of years after, Lupita Nyong'o's performance, which was great. But I was saying, like, you're seeing a trend where it's abused women, whether it's abused women as far as a relationship, working class women that are being abused, whether we're talking about domestic violence, sexual assault, or we're talking about enslavement. You're talking about abused Black women in a lot of these roles. And she's like, well, that's not true. That's disingenuous to say it's that. And I just pulled up a list of all the women who won.
Yeah, exactly.
No shit.
Please tell me where I'm lying.
Exactly. Because I have received.
Because there are equally, if not better, performances by other Black women. Like, I believe there's this one woman, Angela Bassett, who doesn't age, who could have easily won for her portrayal of Tina Turner, or any number of other actresses that could have won. Thankfully, Viola Davis won, but even then, you can argue it was an abusive relationship because of how her husband was. But it was her performance that killed that thing. Go back to Octavia Spencer. Now I'm forgetting name. Octavia Spencer when she won for The Help, and I'm like, that it was the same thing. You're talking about people in a certain role. So, looking at this film, you're seeing how it gets flipped to where there is a contingent of people that are, led by Senator Denton, that want the old South back. Like they're living out their fantasy camp life with this. And that whole scene where Janelle Monáe is riding the horse with the Union General jacket on through the Civil War reenactment. I've expressed this to James before. I hate those things with every fiber of my being. The people that dedicate themselves to, we're going to reenact the Battle of so-and-so. Why? Why are you investing all this time in that when there was other stuff involved in the Civil War and the aftermath of the Civil War that we could be talking about, but we won't because you're afraid to talk about it because you want to talk about, well, up this hill, Pickett and his men ran up and they all got shot. Okay, cool. You can read about that. You can watch the movie.
Well, and what I don't get, like, we never reenact things that we won, right? Like, we don't reenact the Boston Tea Party. We don't reenact, like, any of that shit. We don't do D-Day. We don't redo any of this stuff that actually mattered and was great. But holy shit, hey, we lost because we were assholes and failed. Oh yeah, let's redo that. That sounds great.
Yeah, let's do it over and over again. Let's make it a thing. Let people make actual annual sabbaticals to come see this. It's so weird. It's really weird. And so, that was a big thing that I jotted down and kind of wanted to play around with in, a couple of pieces was that complicity with white feminism in perpetuating this whole racism thing, especially when it comes to Black women. Like, I'm really big on, people sticking together. Like, we have to help each other. That's kind of my mantra. That's my thing. We have to help each other. And so it didn't surprise me because I know the history, but I also know the current. It's like there's this thing. There have been so many Black female activists and writers who have been run off social media. And most of the time when that happens, there is a crying white lady somewhere in the background of the drama because she felt attacked. She didn't want to do the work. And don't get me wrong. I understand that people do get their feelings hurt, but when certain people get their feelings hurt or they get offended, that can mean somebody's literal life. And it's terrible that, even now, that was another thing that kind of stood out to me was how when she's giving her speech and she's saying that was the past and this is now, we are the future. But then she actually ends up in a situation that's sort of the past. It showed how these things are cyclical.
Right.
And how these things perpetuate and feed into themselves and how the past literally does bleed into the present. I mean, like some of this stuff, it is illegal to kill folks. Like, it really is. It is illegal to hold people hostage. You're not supposed to do that. But the key here is who is it? Who do they have hostage though? And who is it that's keeping them captive?
You bring up a great point with the whole who's being held captive and who's being captive and who's holding someone captive, because I forgot what the latest statistics were, but the most missing and unaccounted people, or excuse me, the highest number of unaccounted as far as underreported within the news, it's Black, brown, and indigenous women.
Oh, yes.
And by far, I think it's Black and indigenous women are like neck and neck as far as if they're missing, they've been murdered or anything like that. It's not covered in the news, and their cases in a lot of times are not pursued. Or even in a case of sexual assault, in the aspect of sexual assault cases, they're not pursued in that sense either, because there are all these arguments made as to as typically is made for women, but you see it more disproportionately with Black and indigenous women about they must have put themselves in that situation.
Yes.
I've seen way too much court testimony or courtroom exchanges where a defense attorney will sit up there and accuse the victim of, well, are you sure it wasn't a date? He did.
Exactly. Yes.
Are you sure? I mean, you guys have been talking, and well, how do we know it was rape? You didn't report it, and then of course it all becomes, oh, it must be your fault because you didn't say anything on time, or you didn't do X, Y, or Z, or even in the case of, like with Bill Cosby, I got to think about how to sue this so we don't get sued, because he likes to sue people. In the case of Bill Cosby, right?
I think you'll be okay. This is a more intellectual podcast, so you probably won't listen to it.
That's true. No Joe Rogan stands on here either. But in the sense of his victims, the ones that were not getting as much coverage. I mean, Beverly Johnson definitely got coverage because she went forward. She said, "Hey, this happened to me." He didn't get away with it because I was still conscious, and I started cursing him out. But what you saw was the stories of these women and the victimization of these women was just kind of overlooked, and it became a thing of like, well, it's Bill Cosby. They probably wanted money from him.
Yes.
I'm thinking like, okay, they couldn't have possibly been assaulted by this man who admitted in a deposition that he drugged women.
He admitted it, like it was on page. I saw it was right there. Yeah. That's another thing about that whole idea of respectability politics. Like, there are even factions within the Black community who will say, well, hey, if you do all the right things and you're respectable, then nothing bad will happen to you.
Right.
So it was really important that she was like a whole PhD. She was either upper middle class, right, in socioeconomic status. And it showed that really it doesn't matter. Like, if you're a Black woman, none of that matters. It literally does not save you. Like, you can still become victimized. And so you can't do enough right in order to make nothing happen.
And even if we're not considering things like physical or sexual assault, right?
Right.
You've mentioned the idea of professional recognition. I mean, we're going through this now as far as when Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated for the Supreme Court. Day one, it was, I don't think she's qualified.
Exactly.
Like, I want to see her LSAT scores. And what I've seen is, at least so far, has been a good number of allies or a good number of people advocating. I should say they're advocates. A good number of people advocating and saying, like, you've never asked for anybody else's LSAT scores or grad school records or anything like. So this woman was confirmed 3 times previously by the U.S. Senate for other positions. But now you want to see her LSAT scores. And what I pointed out to some people before was, you're going to see exactly, if you didn't see it on January 6th, if you didn't see it November of 2008, if you didn't see it the day after 9/11, you're going to quickly see who your racist friends are.
Oh, yes.
And not only that, you're going to see who your sexist and racist friends are, because soon as they pull the whole, I don't know if she's qualified. You know what? I really don't see, she doesn't have the look for the bench. She doesn't look professional, which again, that was why I was so glad in this movie and in Candyman, the female protagonists kept their hairstyles a very culturally important way.
Yes, that was really important.
It was great, because I've seen firsthand. Thankfully, the military changed their policy since I was in, but how people would make that same argument about, well, this isn't a professional hairstyle, or this doesn't reflect the culture of this business or this entity or anything like that. And you see so much that gets wrapped into it, until people like the Kardashians decide that they're going to wear it a certain way, and then all of a sudden it becomes acceptable.
Yes. It's all good. And it's like, it's real good then. It's just one of these. I really like the fact that this movie pointed out all of these things, and that styling was crucially important, because really we haven't been able to do it. I think I read somewhere that, I know we're not talking about Jordan Peele, but I read somewhere that in Us, he purposely wanted Lupita Nyong'o's hair in those small sister locks, because there have not been any instances of Black women on TV with them before, on film. And I thought, you know what? I think you're right, because I'm always looking at the hair. And if I'm looking at the hair and I'm going, wait a minute, now if she got her hair done like that, why is she not sleeping with a bonnet on? Why are her pillowcases not silk? Know? And so for me, it adds that level of authenticity where I don't have to step back, be put out of the story. Like, I see this as authentic. I see Dr. Veronica living vibrantly. She is living very unapologetically. So she has all these bright clothes. She has her hair, done up in a way that we recognize as being ethnic. And I'm just digging it. I'm loving it. And it's just, it's not just for the representation. It's so that other people that don't see this every day, or who don't understand that this can be one way that Black women do things, it serves as education too. And the issue that I have with so much rebellion, so much rejection against these kind of movies is that if we don't get more of them made, if we don't get more of these characters' experiences out in the open, then they're always going to seem foreign. It's always going to seem like it's not supposed to be there. And so it's kind of this self-perpetuating prophecy. It's like, if you gatekeep and keep this stuff off the screen and out of books, well, then people aren't exposed to this. And then when they are exposed to it, they can turn around and say, well, that character is not believable, or I can't connect with that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that about my writing, when I'm sitting there thinking, well, your failure to have a broader worldview is not my problem.
Right. I love that. Stick that on a shirt right now.
Okay. I mean, I'm being punished because you haven't met people like my characters. That's not my fault. I'm gonna need you to go fix that. That's a you thing. So go fix that, so that you can understand that Black people are different. Blackness is not a monolith. And so I get excited when I see these kind of things, and I go, okay, so that means that when I send out this little blackety black ass story of mine about this, well, then that means that people should be able to see and recognize that this is an authentic Black experience, and maybe they won't be so uncomfortable about it. Of course, it's not working out quite that way. But I mean, I can dream. And the more exposure, the more that these stories are told, the more that these characters with this different nuance are allowed to be and just exist like regular human stories, it's just going to be better for the whole genre all the way around. Like, it's just going to be better.
Yeah, because you're going to have more variety of the stories that are included. And I don't mean just like the main story. I mean, as far as like the backstories of individuals as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, it even here, let me just change course on this, because before I forget, I love, at least from my estimation, the juxtaposition between white women in this movie. Yes. So there's the friend, Sarah. It was Sarah, right? Sarah, who's friends with Dawn and Dr. Veronica. She's friends with them, but she's not the. Let me just put it this way: she's not the friend who's overly trying to be friends with Black people for the sake of saying that she has Black friends. Exactly. It's kind of like she gets invited along, and it's not. And I heard this mom doing this at gymnastics practice for my daughter in the hallway, and I'm sitting there like, "Are you saying this because I'm like 5 feet away from you?" But she was on the phone. She was on the phone. She's like, I was like, "Oh, girlfriend, what's going on?" And she was saying this to her kids, and I'm like, "Are you saying this?" And I'm like, "Oh man, she's gonna say sis. She's gonna say sis soon." She's like, "Come on, sis," and I'm like, "Oh my God, no, you don't have to."
Seated? Were you like next to Amy Poehler and she was doing like Mean Girls 2? Is that what was happening here?
I don't know what this mom was doing. Maybe she talks like that, but nothing about it came across as this is the way she naturally spoke, right? But the character Sarah, like she was doing that balance of these are my friends. I'm with them enough. I know their stories. I know of their experience, but there's no way in hell I could completely authentically experience what they experience, nor am I going to be fully understanding of that experience, but I should at least still be here, listen to them, pay attention, and so I can absorb some of this stuff, right? So there was never this moment of, I don't remember her once saying, with the when Gabourey's character, when Dawn was like, "Oh yeah, he's got a friend." It wasn't, "Oh, what does he look like?" It's kind of that coded way of asking, "Is he Black? Is he white?"
Right.
She just asked like, "Is he fine? Is he good looking?" Right. There was nothing. She was kind of like, "No, I've been around these women for a long time. I've obviously been introduced to Black guys before or white guys or where, Dawn is, she's like, I don't give a shit. A penis is a penis." Like that. Exactly. That's the way. That was the way she.
Or two or three of them.
Well, yeah.
She was equal opportunity, man.
She was
good for her.
Sexually progressive and sexually secure, and I loved every bit of her character because even when she said when Veronica didn't want to go out, she's like, "I don't care because I'm trying to fuck tonight," and I lost it because she's like, "I'm being upfront. You're not going to ruin my fun. I'm going to find somebody to get with."
That was so important.
But Sarah's character, it was kind of like, I'm your friend. I'm here. I'm not trying to put on airs about who I am. I'm going to be authentic. Maybe her friend, maybe they had that conversation one day where they're like, "Look, when you say girlfriend, it doesn't come off right. Like you need to chill with that shit. Like you need to calm down."
And that could have happened. Yes, that does happen sometimes. Yes.
And I feel they probably did have that conversation with her like once, and they basically said like, "You're cool with us, like just be you," and that was probably it. But I loved how they had her character, and then the two scariest people in this entire film.
Hell yeah!
The little girl on the elevator. Which as soon as I said that, I said, "Get the hell out of the elevator right now. This is not a good sign."
I was watching it. I literally went, "Oh no, little blonde girl, Dawn is gonna freak out."
Look, this has happened to me in person, and I think I can't remember if James was with me or not, but there was a kid waiting to get on the elevator, and I was like, "Nope, I'll wait for the next one. I will wait for the next one."
Oh wow!
This has never ended well. Not gonna do it.
I was not there, but I wish I was.
It's like, but what if she's lost? Well, she can go to somebody who works at the hotel. I'm not going to help her.
Exactly. No, I'm sorry. No, that's too much. That's too much creepy kid at one time, like in different ways. Yeah. Like you never know what to expect from that.
I just want to know why she's wearing that shit. Like, why is she not dressed as a normal kid? They're in the hotel. Like, Jenna Malone wasn't wearing Civil War shit, right? Like... And so this is a legit question for you guys. I knew spoilers going in, as I almost always do. So I wondered, like, did it play off more like a Ghost from the Past for you? Or like, because for like me, I knew what was happening. So I'm just like, why the fuck is she dressed like that? But
no, I live in Texas. I mean, again, like I've seen my share of Confederate flags. the different little uniform, the whole Civil War, the Great Northern Aggression. I mean, like, I've seen and heard all of it. I just really, what I took it as was just another one of those whole, the past is always bleeding into the future and the current, because we haven't really reconciled with it. So sort of like, not necessarily ghost, but like just the current iteration of that thing.
I had a mix because I was still convinced that she was dealing with her past or generational trauma or something, right, in her head. Mm-hmm. So when I saw the little girl, I was like, and maybe it was me, but did the little girl seem a little bit out of focus to either of you?
Yes.
Okay. So it made me think that she might have been, or she might have been part of her imagination. You know, it's just one of those things
okay.
Plus those flowers were very suspicious, where I started thinking like, well, maybe this is going to be the thing that's going to, you know, intoxicate her or make her have hallucinations. So my mind was racing. It was going everywhere, thinking like, okay, well, maybe they put something in the flowers and it made her have a reaction. Now she's going to see things, or this is a way of like taking her off her pedestal, or they're gonna do this in order to kidnap her or something. But you know, I was really disappointed. Well, I guess the flowers were a good diversion for me.
They really were. Yeah, I agree. Like I remember seeing them and thinking, "Hey, wait a minute! Aren't some flowers poisonous? And don't some do this kind of thing?" And I wasn't so sure what to think about them. They were a great red herring. They really were.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my thing with the little girl was just it's that shot where they show the hallway, like after. The Veronica closes the door. They show the hallway, and the little girl's like standing down the hallway, staring, like all shining, like right. And that's why it was so fucking weird to me, because I knew what was happening, and I'm like, why is this girl dressed this way and hanging out in a fucking hall? What is happening here?
Well, James, I will.
I don't think that you should tip her off.
No,
if we're going to kidnap her.
Rhonda said, because that is a very Southern thing where you will have someone who, their kids. I see them every day. I mean, not even, for the, hey, we need to pretend like our side won the war, which, means we put up all these trophies everywhere, or participation trophies everywhere. But no, I see kids like that going in my daughter's school dressed like that.
Yes.
Or similar to, I mean, not fully like that, but similar to that. And then, if there's, God forbid, there's a pageant or something that's going on. You have kids that will have stuff like that. Or if there's like a church service.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, plus it was New Orleans. So I'll be honest, it wouldn't be out of sorts for somebody who had been dressed like that. Like they could have had like the family would have been visiting other family, and they went to a party and decided, we're going to dress you up like, your great Nana, and we're going to play a prank on her. I mean, there are any number of things they could have done.
Well,
Grandma, it's you.
Yeah, it's totally a Southern thing. I mean, like that just didn't seem strange to me, because we're kind of surrounded by it. Like I think I live in one of the so I live right outside of Houston, but the area where I live is very it is very much entrenched in those kind of things. So, I'm just not surprised by that stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's and the crazy thing is that the kids are being totally raised in that kind of an environment, being raised to think that this is something that we honor. That, it is literally perpetuated onto the younger kids. And so, I always, now that my kids are teenagers, I've sort of tried to ease up a tiny bit on that, but I was always having to vet their friends. I'm always like, okay, so this little friend of yours, what are they like? Who are their people? What's going on? Let me go do some digging, because you just really don't know. Like there's that kind of stuff is just regular.
We drive by their house and see which flag is out front.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, exactly. And I know, oh my God. The huge thing for me was like, I live in the kind of a school district where when President Obama was being sworn in, the schools sent out these letters to all the parents and said that they could opt out of their child viewing the inauguration. And I mean, of course, my kids are little, and I'm thinking, and I was like, okay, this is a lot. But again, I get it. I understand. This is where I live. This is where we put down our roots or whatever.
I'm going to one-up you on this one.
But did you get to skip it? Did you get to skip it when the Orange Demon took over?
Well, but see, that's what I was going to say. When that inauguration came along, I was waiting for my letter, and I never got it. So I went to the school and I said, I want my opt-out letter. And the lady at the desk just kind of looked at me. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, for the inauguration, I don't want my kids to have no part of that. Matter of fact, I typed up my own letter and I don't want you showing it to them. And she just kind of looked, she turned beet red. And I was like, because that's what we do when inaugurations come up, right? We send out opt-out letters, right? That's what we do. That's what y'all did the last time.
That's wonderful.
She just turned beet red. But see, they know me at my kids' school. They know when they see me coming, they're like, oh, here she comes. What she on today, and I tell her we can do this the $5 word, master's degree having way, or we can do this straight out the hood. I'm not playing with you today way. You get to choose though. You get to choose who you deal with at this point. But yeah, that's the neighborhood that I live in, and so yeah, that whole little girl with the thing, that's what these folks around there do.
See, James, that's what I was telling you before about code switching.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Because there are days when I'm like, somebody's like, oh, Professor Giller. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then they might see me somewhere else and I might have a different attitude or but you're like, shit, I can't turn it off sometimes. Like I have to. Right. You start realizing like, oh my God, my job is in jeopardy if I just say something that is just normal, like in traffic, like. Last year, and I'll get to the shutting off thing. Last year, we have a good number, which is understandable. We have a good number of Confederate sympathizers in the local area, some of which did say things like "blood and soil" in Charlottesville, and they might have said it at this reenactment area as well. But on Memorial Day, two of them, one was standing outside. I'm sorry, not outside. He was standing right next to the Confederate monument that's right next to the courthouse, strangely enough. Mm-hmm. And the other guy was dressed up in a gray Civil War uniform, saluting the statue. My wife pulled it up on Facebook or somewhere. She's like, oh, my God, is that here? And I looked at it. I mean, we were riding back from the movies or something. And I looked at it. I was like, yeah, that's here. That's like 30 minutes ago. So I'm like, There's no way they're here. I went out of my way to take a different route to get home so we would go by the statue because I wanted to see it. And and I said, Donald, don't do it. Don't do it. And she looked at me. She's like, oh, my God, no. And I'm like, Donald, don't do it. She's like, and she grabbed my arm. She's like, please, just calm down. And I took my other hand and I started rolling down the window.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And because I wanted to get a good look, I saw the guy, standing by the statue, and I saw the other guy in the gray uniform. And the guy at the statue saw me, and he's like, "Happy Memorial Day." And I was not going to say anything until he said that. Oh. Because if you are in the veteran community, if you have military personnel who are family, two words don't go together, and that's happy and memorial.
Of course, shit. Right.
And then traitors don't go along with Memorial Day. So he said that. I stuck my head out the window and I said, no. We don't wish happy Memorial Day to anybody. We definitely don't wish it to any fucking traitors. And my wife grabbed me and pulled me back in. And I was like, why did he have to say that? Why did he have to say that? I wasn't I just wanted to look, and he had to say Happy Memorial Day to me. But the school thing tripped me out because I was teaching at the time, and President Obama was already in office. I don't even think it was a full year. And he was doing, kind of visits to schools and whatever. And he was giving a speech about education and the importance of going to college, right?
Okay.
The school district shut off the internet. They didn't send letters. No. They shut off the internet so no one could show it.
Wow.
Shut up.
So no one could live stream it. So I'm like trying to check my email, can't get in. I'm trying to enter like the attendance in the school, can't get into anything. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, and I'm like, well, the servers are temporarily down. And then I found out later in the day it was because the school district, the superintendent or just the board or whoever decided we're not going to allow anybody district-wide to be able to see that. Now, mind you, I was living in Arizona at the time, and they were still upset that he beat John McCain.
Oh, wow.
So, they hired. They elected Elizabeth to replace him. I mean, Kirsten Sinema to replace him in office.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for 1 second. Boo. All right.
Yeah.
As an Arizonan, boo. All right.
Elizabeth in this movie is basically Kirsten Sinema. That's all I thought of when I saw this, which was you just had to say something. Why can't we have unity? Why can't you do this? Like, why can't you just do what you're supposed to do and mind your own business?
Exactly.
How is this bothering you? But no, when you're talking about teaching this, like you've got this guy, Senator Denton, who is her father. And they only refer to him as him in the movie, or even in the credits, he's referred to as him.
Really?
But yeah, I looked at it, I was like, okay, well, that's kind of a cool thing because you take his identity away from him. I don't know if they did this intentionally, but they take his identity away from him because that was what was done to all these people. So I thought it was kind of, if they intended that, I think that was a cool device. If they didn't, it was still cool the way they did it because everyone else has a name except for him.
Okay.
But you know that he's Senator Denton by the end because, Jasper goes, he's like, oh, Senator Denton, are you okay, Senator Denton? And you're like, oh, shit. Now, the other signs I was seeing now make sense. But it's that same thing as far as like you have men in power that have been held in power or kept in power due to white male supremacy and just the system of patriarchy. And in order to do that, they then push down what they believe in to their sons and daughters.
Yep.
You have some daughters who believe in it because they will take whiteness or solidarity with whiteness over solidarity to femininity any day of the week.
Every time. There are groups every time that will do that. Yes. There are some people that will. Yes.
And even with black men, there are black men that will be adherent to white supremacy. I'm sorry, masculinity.
Yes.
And white supremacy more than, being aligned with black women or any other women of color or aligned with women of color if it means, speaking down on black women, which I've seen enough people on social media with their hot takes about, if black women would just be more docile and actually be more agreeable. And I'm sitting here like, you want a child. That's what you're saying is you want a child to be a partner.
Basically, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But even all the little Easter eggs that they threw in this movie, I was chuckling so many times. I'm in the Jefferson suite. I just sat there like,
yes.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. That was really fun. It was. There's just so much in here that really just speaks to because one of the things which is kind of funny that you're talking about, you're saying how he was labeled as him without a name. I didn't see that. What I did see was the what I looked at. We talked about the cast. There was the enslaved male. That's exactly what they just put, the enslaved male. That was the name of it. And then they had the actor's name. And I remember thinking, well, that's a really good way to center the experience of Dr. Veronica. Mm-hmm. Because you're making this general like faceless and nameless. And so I wonder if that's not why that was done also with the senator, because if you just name him as him, you could be him anywhere.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of just puts the face that it could be anything. So I'm with you. If they did it on purpose, that was a really good device. I'm not so sure that they did, but I mean, we could give them the benefit of that, I guess.
Well, that reinforces that one line, as far as what you're saying, that reinforces that line that he gives at the end, which is we're everywhere and nowhere.
Yes.
When he basically saying like, you're not going to be able to, this isn't going to end here. This is, just the way that they kind of throw that this this is going to continue. This is going to be cyclical, because what would end up happening if this were a true story, which we've seen these stories of, there was the enslavement of people in Georgia. There was, the women who've been held captive, and groups of women that have been held captive.
Oh,
what ends up happening is nothing changes. All that happens is you have the focus on that incident, and there's nothing that delves deeper into how someone was able to get away with this in broad daylight, or how someone was able to get away with this for so long. Or in the case of, just recently, how is it that all these guys could shoot into Breonna Taylor's apartment, killing her, and no one is found guilty of anything? Because even this at the time of this recording this past week, the one officer that was charged with, I guess, negligent discharge of a weapon, he was found not guilty this past week. So again, it's one of those things of, Breonna Taylor was there. She unfortunately got overshadowed by George Floyd, and a lot of people ended up forgetting about her case. Not that George Floyd's case wasn't important, but but because there was so much going on, it was like, oh, we moved on to George Floyd, and I remember people on social media saying, like, we still need to talk about Breonna Taylor. We still need to talk about Sandra Bland. We need to talk about all of these individuals that did not have due process and did not receive justice. They received, we're doing an investigation. The investigation is being done by the same people that committed the crime. Right.
And that's exactly the point. Like, the reason why these things can happen, and the reasons why, like in the movie, he says, we're just going to spring up somewhere else. We'll just, put up tents there, and we'll still be able to do this. It's because the systems are set up that way. Like, that's the way the systems are. The systems uphold that type of behavior. And just because one set of people actually get caught in action, it doesn't mean that justice is going to be, meted as far as that's concerned. And so I think it's important for people to kind of see and know that, because again, as a Southerner, I wasn't surprised that this was in Louisiana. I wasn't surprised that it was on a plantation, because I'm thinking, well, man, if I was going to try to camouflage something like that, I guess I would put it in one of the numerous plantations that still dot the landscape in Louisiana. It's just out in the open, like they're just there. I'm glad that people have started having a conversation about folks having events and weddings at these places. I mean, like, I understand the curiosity in me, because I've visited some of them, right? I've visited the plantations before for research, not just that, but to also try to get for community with those spirits, with that energy of the enslaved people, right? Like, I'm not like, gonna get all woo-woo here, but I thought it was important to pay homage to those spirits, to those people. And so it was never never a thing of, I'm trying to celebrate this. I want to take pictures here. It was nothing like that. And I'm like, who in the world, if you ever invited me to a wedding at a plantation, the first thing I'm gonna do is probably cuss you out. And the second thing I'm gonna do is ask you, are you out your rabbit ass mind? Why would I want to go to a plantation to celebrate anything? Are you for real? Like, seriously? That is just really highly disrespectful, but it's been done for years and years and years. And so that didn't surprise me that they were kind of hiding in plain sight. And that's exactly what they would do. They would go and move the camp, and they would just set up again. And they would be able to operate the same way, because the systems that are in place allow them to do that.
Well, that also answers a question my wife had at the beginning of the movie, because I'm still thinking, as time travels back in the past, racialized trauma, stuff like that. But there's that point where they burn the cotton, and she asked me, she's like, why are they burning the cotton? I said, that doesn't make sense. I said, the only people that would burn the cotton would be Union troops coming through, so that they couldn't sell it. I said, but then maybe they're burning because there's an infestation within the cotton. I said, but that doesn't make sense. They wouldn't burn the cotton because. And then when it finally happened, I was like, son of a bitch.
And for me, they were burning the cotton. And for me, knowing the twist, I'm watching it and I'm like, those motherfuckers, like,
you're getting rid of
holy
evidence.
Shit.
All the evidence there,
but also, like,
left.
None of their work even matters. Like, they're being forced to do this labor that doesn't matter.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that, I thought that was like just further erasure of that labor and of those lives that were lived there. That's exactly it. Like that is the man that was so insidious. I was like, and then of course it being the South, we don't think anything when we smell smoke or we see fire up, like we burn stuff all the time. I mean, it's just what people do. They just go out and they burn shit on their property, you know.
Yeah, you're burning your trash, you're burning probably your grass to resod. I mean, it might just be somebody's car that's needs a new muffler.
Exactly. We just have these random fires. I mean, not so much where I live now, but very near, because I have an HOA that they sort of frown upon those things for lots of reasons. But, but again, I'm here, I'm Texan, and like I drive down the street, you're going to see bonfires. That's just, you're going to smell stuff burning. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the way my brain thinks, because I am a horror writer, I'm wondering, well, what are they burning though? Like, how do we know that that's like legit? Like, it could be something that's not supposed to be on fire and they could be hiding something. And I guess they're going to get away with it because we don't even investigate this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, it's...
Yeah, it was a lot. I really just, and I'm just really glad that I get to talk about this movie with the two of you, because it really, I think it makes me feel a lot better to know that I wasn't just caping for this thing,
No, dude, you're not.
Issues and I'm like, man, look, we need to talk about this stuff. It was really important to me, that this centered a Black woman and her experience. It was really, really important to me to touch on all of those things, the respectability politics, the whole, idea that if you be quiet, then maybe they'll leave you alone. And, the idea that there are people that long to return to this type of a lifestyle. Like, yes. I just can't even imagine. I've had people, I've worked with housekeepers in my house, kind of on and off. And I just still don't even understand the idea behind having somebody doing stuff for you and you're not paying them and you're not nice to them and you're not respectful to them. Like, I had the last lady we worked with would say to me, no, just tell me to do this stuff. Just tell me what to do. And I was like, girl, I'm not handling you like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, right. We're partners in this. And my thing is, first of all, you're the professional. You tell me what you want to do. How do you want to do this? Okay, that's fine with me. Like, I'm not going to go around ordering you around and looking down my nose. Are you serious? I don't want people doing that to me on my job either.
And what that tells you is so many people have already been doing that.
Exactly.
To where that person is now conditioned to, okay.
Exactly. And that's just terrible to me. I don't understand that whole concept of how you can see other human beings suffering in that way. And you have something to do with it. Like, you're the one that's got them there doing that anyway. Like, what does that do for you on the inside? It really makes you feel superior. I just find that to be really, it pisses me off, but it also makes me really sad that can actually fill a hole in some people. It's like, oh, well, if I just go kidnap these people and we rape them and beat them and we trot them in front of our children and teach them that they're supposed to be subordinate, they're supposed to be owned and objects, that's going to make us feel really good. I mean, like, man, that's what you need for your high? Wow.
Yeah, and then it's the lies that some tell themselves in order to maintain that system. But I haven't quoted or haven't referenced James Baldwin on this podcast in a while, so I feel it's necessary now, given what you just brought up. And what it really comes down to is the question that he asked was, you need me to be the N-word. That's what you need me to be, because if you don't have me and you can't call me that, you then have to contend with, I'm paraphrasing, you have then to contend with who you are. And who you are is lacking identity without me here. And that's what a lot of those people that were participating in enslavement, W. Du Bois and I think it's Daniel Roediger or David Roediger. I'm going to give it to Du Bois because Du Bois came up with the term way before Roediger did. But he calls it the psychological wages of whiteness. It doesn't matter what class you are, right? What white people, especially in the South, were being taught was, as long as you're not Black, as long as you're not enslaved, you're good. But if those enslaved people get political rights, get social rights, get economic freedom, anything like that, they're then equal with you. So you had upper class people that were passing this down and saying,
Yes.
You don't want them to become equal, because if they're equal to you. They're not equal to me. You're going to be on the same ground as them. You're going to be competing for jobs with them. And you see this at every stage of American history, post-Civil War. When we're talking about integrating the military, I don't want a black officer over me. Or you're seeing, with sports integrating. Oh man, if they got one black person that's coming, that means that they're all going to be coming and taking our jobs. But my thing is, like, isn't that the point? Like, the best person's supposed to be playing. When it comes to politics, like, I'm not going to have a black person become president. Or now with the Supreme Court, it's the same. It's the same thing as far as, like, well, I don't think that she's qualified. Yes. You don't do shit for a living. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have a law degree. You don't have the experience that she had. It's like those guys who, whether you want to call them incels or not, it's like those guys who will see a supermodel, or they'll see anyone who is objectively attractive and then say, like, her nose is too big.
Yep.
I don't like her. I don't like her shoulders. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what prize are you? In fact, there was some lady who read these guys the filth on one of the podcasts, because he was talking about, a woman needs to do this, do this, do this. And then she said, well, what are you offering? Like, what is it that you actually have to offer? Because I've been sitting here 5 minutes on your show, and I can tell you right now, there's nothing that you have to offer a woman at all. So well, it's like, women are working now too. So what are you talking about? Like, what exactly do you think you offer? So it's interesting. But the couple of things I definitely didn't want to miss on this was the whistling. And again, historically, that was a tactic that was used. So enslaved domestic slaves, enslaved domestic African Americans would not, because I got repetitions with enslaved and slave, were told, and this is where the cakewalk comes from, told to whistle so they wouldn't spit in the food. And it was just this understanding, like, we want to hear you whistling. So one, you're not spitting in the food, and then two, we know you're not eating it.
Right. Yeah.
But so I was thinking, when they were whistling, I thought about that, but I also thought about the other ways that people could communicate, because when they were told there's no talking, you guys can't talk, you can't do this. I was thinking about all the other ways that enslaved people, well before the twist, that enslaved people would communicate with one another. And there was definitely nonverbal, there was music, there was coded language, because you're not going to sit out there saying, like, you know what, tonight we're going to cut Master's throat and dump his body into the river. And
Right.
You're going to sing a song, and especially when Jasper, whatever his name is saying, like, oh, y'all need to be whistling a song out here while you're working. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you would typically ask them to sing a song. Why are you asking them to whistle? But of course, it makes sense when it's the idea of, like, these are not enslaved people in the antebellum period. These are enslaved people in the modern period. And if they do talk, now it's an issue of somebody down the road could possibly hear you talking or calling for help, and then wondering what is going on, which is, again, why they had that restriction with cell phones. But just that whole thing, I found so intriguing when the song that they chose to whistle was Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I sat there, and I was, at first I didn't catch the tune, but when they played it longer, I was like, they are playing they're whistling Lift Every Voice, the Black National Anthem. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, that's another layer that goes into this. Because that song is all about prevailing in through destitution and seeking justice, seeking freedom. And I'm sitting there like, wow, like, that's another great thing that they chose, because there have been so many movies where it's like, oh, the code whistle is like a wolf whistle, or you'll whistle some other tune or whatever. And this one, it wasn't just that they had a selected song. It was the song that was picked, the meaning behind that song, the history behind that song, and the way that song itself is going to kind of turn that knife a little bit more.
Yeah, that is a really cool observation. I didn't pick up that tune at all. See, now I got to watch it again and go, oh, yes, yes.
You know, this is the other thing. James isn't going to know about this. I'm sorry, James. It's a cultural thing. But,
Okay.
but you'll get some insight. If you had been sitting with me, I would have said this. So this is why I got to say this now in this recording. When Janelle Monáe grabbed the can of Murray's, I laughed so hard. And my wife, Rhonda, my wife is from Mexico. She's like, what? I said, that's a lifetime supply of Murray's. And she's like, it is? And I'm like, no, it's not. But I don't know if anybody who has ever finished a can of Murray's hair pomade. It doesn't matter. But she just put her hand in and a boom, 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 slick, and fixed her hair up. And I'm like, damn, like that is like a culture. Here's how cultural it is, James. There is a can of Murray's hair pomade at the African American Museum in Washington, D.C.
Shut up.
I kid you
not. I can see that. I can see that, though, because it's very important. It's very critical. It's very important.
Whoever was the curator, like in that hair section, they have one display that's dedicated to Murray's, and then the different types of combs, brushes, and then different devices that would be used. When I saw the can of Murray's, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was probably the original can because
right. Look, you will lose it before you use it all. And actually, you probably wouldn't lose it because everybody uses it, right? Like everybody in the house uses it. Oh, man. Well, that's another cool thing about this movie is it was very specifically catered to a Black gaze. And I thought that was super cool because of those little details like that. Because of the little details about the hair, the Murrays, and then the way that she was dressed, the way that they talked to each other, it was very, very easily recognizable. And I thought, oh my gosh, we hardly ever get this. This is really cool. It's one thing to get a movie from, through a vision of what people think that Black people would notice or talk about, as opposed to getting something that is so embedded so deeply in there. It's just natural, right? Like I'm thinking back to, I saw that Murray's can. I'm thinking, was she Black is supposed to be there? It's not the same as movies where you have to kind of come out of it and you go, oh, but why would she be using that type of thing on her hair? Because that's going to break her hair off. That's not good. Her hair going to fall out of her head if she put that stuff on it, right? And I've seen this in lots of movies where I'm going, man, you cannot have your Black character washing their hair every single day. You just can't do that. My hair would fall out if I washed it every single day. Like it would damage it. I need the oil in it, right? I can't do that on an everyday basis. But if you're just somebody that's kind of play acting or thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to write this Black character that they're actually not Black, but I'm just going to give it to a Black actor or actress, and then I'm still going to have them do this other stuff. It's like, no. And when they get out that shower, you better have them moisturizing their skin too, because that's like that. You just got to do that. But so many movies, they don't show this little nuance, right?
Mm-hmm. And Denzel Washington, when I think it was when they were making Fences, he was asked about why he was directing it, and he said this needed a Black director's touch on the film. I mean, it was August Wilson's play that he was converting into a film, but he said, no, I needed a Black creator in the director's chair for this film because not racially, culturally. Because I know if it wasn't me, it was going to be another Black director, because I needed somebody in that seat who understood what Sunday morning smelled like in that house.
Yes.
And that's not something that you can explain to somebody. If you had sisters or cousins or whatever that were coming over your house before church, or if you were doing the hair, you know the sound of the sizzle.
Yes, and you know the smell of burning hair and a little bit of burning flesh, because they're going to catch this side of the face sometime if you don't sit still. Oh, yes.
Yep. And when he was explaining that, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, that's what I see that's missing in a lot of these movies is you have this kind of generic approach to things where it's kind of like, if you use somebody like Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell, her character was as generic as possible. And I don't know why I'm comparing two different. If you had something like, well, I'll just go with that. So if you had that as far as her character, as opposed to the way I'm hearing reviews on the Bel Air, as far as the approach from production and from the director and writers themselves, they're gearing it more towards, which they didn't shy away from in the 90s, but they're gearing it even more towards Black cultural influence and inclusion. And not being apologetic about it. I mean, there's still kind of the things that, you know, the rich kids would have and deal with, but you know, there's a little bit more reality to what, you know, a Will Smith of today would have been dealing with in Philly, as opposed to what a Will Smith in the late 80s, early 90s would have been dealing with.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. That's good.
So I'm hearing good things. I'm just going to wait till it's the whole, because they only release it every week. So I'm waiting until an episode a week. So I'm waiting until it's done so I can just so I can binge all of it. Because that's very important, especially not just for Black audiences, but for non-Black audiences to see is these cultural things that are there, so that not that they're going to fully understand someone's culture based off of a few movies, but there are going to be some things there that they can then appreciate, they can recognize. It might even start a conversation or two, you know, because there's nothing in this movie, at least for my estimation, where you're being beaten over the head with it, as far as like, oh, they're telling Black women to shut up, and oh, see, they made her shut up, ha ha ha. You know, you see what she's dealing with, the criticism, the pushback, and then you see how someone takes it to the extremes of what that pushback is. It's we're going to shut you up one way or another.
Yep. And we need to see that. We have to have that. It's really important. And I mean, I would hope, I had hoped that this would be a movie that would open up some of those conversations. But like when it just kind of passed on by, like it didn't even happen, I was like, wait a minute. Now we got to do it again. We should do it again. We should do another one. Or we should just bring this one back out. Or I can just go and, you know, beat the pavement and talk about it and write about it every chance I get. I could do that.
I guarantee you, if since this is just, because I think it's on Hulu now, or I know it's on Hulu. I know it's on FX movies and stuff like that, because the timing of it being out. I'm hoping it gains some more traction, because it just seemed like there was a really good opportunity, not just for this movie, but a good number of other movies featuring non-white casts or non-white protagonists that could have gotten a lot more attention. And you know, there were several Asian American Pacific Islander movies that had, or at least protagonist-led movies that had come out and were getting some good reactions. But especially, you know, the domestic ones, it just seemed like people weren't willing to go and see those movies until they got that acclaim of, oh, this is Oscar nominated. Right. And then it became like, oh, well, we now approve. We'll go see this movie. I'm like, no, like try those movies out. You might like it. You might not like it, but at least give it a try, because I'll be honest, I've seen so many garbage mainstream America movies. Yes. Just like within, you know, superhero movies and action movies and stuff, where, you know, you have a number of men who've directed or written those movies, and they could be complete flops. But if one woman makes a movie, either she's writing it, directing it, producing it, she makes that movie, and if it doesn't do well, they're like, oh, we're never going to let a woman do this again. I'm like, you let like 500 guys do the same movie and screw it up.
Yes.
And here we are. You've got one female director, and she did great with Wonder Woman. Then Wonder Woman 1984 didn't get as well received. Now it's like, oh, we're not going to let another woman direct one of these. It's not going to happen.
This always happens. Like, and this goes back to what you were saying about representation earlier. Like, it's always, well, you've already had a Black president. Well, we had like, you know, 40 some, because let's say I don't count one of them, but like we've had 40 some.
Well, Grover Cleveland, because he was president twice. Non-successive.
Some people can pull that off, and some people are giant fucking losers who need to die. All right, so my point is, like that's always what comes up. Well, you've already had that, or like, well, Get Out one. Okay, well, if you can list the only ones that have happened, there's not enough.
Yes.
Right.
If we all sat down and somebody said, write down black written movies that have won an Oscar, I guarantee we're going to hit a lot of the same shit. And there's a reason for that, you know?
Yes.
And but that's always the thing. Like, well, you've already had a trans whatever over here, and you've had a lesbian movie over here, and you've had this black, you have a black superhero, and you know, you don't need Falcon or you don't need him to be the new Captain America because there was already a black superhero. And it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, we've already had too many Batmans, but they keep showing up. You know, like, it's so fucking weird.
We've had 8 white guys be James Bond, and you mentioned Idris Elba, and it's like, no, he can't be. And like, why? Is he too sexy? Is he too sexy to be Bond? Because that's the only reason I could come up with.
That's the only
even
one
like like superheroes, I always come back to Miles Morales, right? Because number one, he's my favorite Spider-Man. But number two, this motherfucker doesn't get to be Spider-Man. He is clearly Spider-Man. Everything about him is Spider-Man, but everybody calls him by his secret identity because we know what happens if people know your secret identity. People are actively trying to get Miles Morales killed. Like, that's what's happening here. And I think it's so weird. My point with that is I think it's weird how even when you're supposedly on the same level, there's a black Spider-Man, right? You're still never on that same level. You're still not the real Spider-Man. You're the black Spider-Man.
Right.
You're not the real Green Lantern. You're John Stewart, the black Green Lantern.
How dare you call me out like that, James?
You got it, buddy. But like, it's always that. It's always either, you know, it's constantly there, or it's, well, you had one like 22 years ago. What are you complaining about?
Oh my gosh, yes. Well,
look, I want a black Terminator.
Oh man,
I'd watch that.
Dope. Oh, that would be
wait,
so
actually,
dope.
let me take that back because I realized who was up for Terminator at one point, and he did kill a couple of people. Never mind. I'll take that back. That back. Yeah, you know, yeah. Yeah, the Juice was in talks to be Terminator.
I was gonna ask if it was okay.
Yeah, no. Well,
like as soon as I did, I was like, oh, never mind.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, we don't want that, not that part right there. But that speaks to like one of the biggest obstacles to marginalized creators. In that, like, it's really hard to get somebody to give you that opportunity. But like, we already know, like I'm always talking to my buddies, we already know that we will not be allowed grace to fail. Like, we have no margin to fail. We understand that if we have to do something, it's going to have to be so like bonkers, marvelous that it should probably be perfect, because we won't be given that chance again. Like, there's going to be every excuse to say, hey, I mean, we gave these people this many shows. They even admit, like those 2 dudes even admitted they didn't even know what they were doing. But they were allowed all this grace and all this money to kind of just bumble around, right? And just kind of figure it out as they went. And you know, marginalized creators, we're just not given those opportunities. And when you do get a shot, people will find every reason in the world to not give you credit for it. One thing that I hear a lot, especially being in these writing world, in the horror community, and I'm sure it happens in other genres too, but there's all this talk about, oh, well, you know, the only reason why that writer got that book deal is because they're Black and they just want to check off the boxes. And yet, when you look at the history of so many creators that come from marginalized groups, we have been doing this for a really long time.
Yep.
Like, there are no instant successes when you belong to a marginalized group. Nothing is instant. Like, I could name a ton of writers just off the top of my head that have been writing forever and who are just now starting to see some traction because of that whole attitude that, well, if they're there, or, oh my gosh, because one thing that I heard kind of in whispers when that preliminary Bram Stoker Award ballot came out was, oh yeah, well, you know, they're checking off boxes, like to kind of minimize the works that were on there. Because when I tell you this preliminary ballot was like the gayest and the most colorfulest ballot that I'd ever
It was
seen.
glorious.
It was so glorious. And so, I mean, I couldn't even be salty that my little story, not one of them made it to the final ballot. Because, I mean, number one, I was kind of like, yeah, you pushing it with them 2 whole stories. They're going to be tired of looking at you. That's a lot. But the other stuff that's on there that is just so fabulous, right? That if anything, whenever anything makes it to that final ballot, it's going to be great. But I mean, there already were whispers of, oh, this writer's not that great. She's just the flavor of the month. Or he's not that great a writer. I've read a lot better stuff. They just gave him that deal and they're just big up in his work because he's queer or because she's Latina. Or, and I'm thinking, that really minimizes the work that writers put into this stuff. It's like, I could see if you were like that, like one random dude that just came on the scene like yesterday and got a 6-book deal with a big house and ain't never wrote nothing in his life, because that still happens. Right? That nobody ever says, hey, that dude shouldn't have had that, because that's the way that they feel the world is supposed to work. And so that just puts us with all these obstacles. And so we have to kind of fight against that. And then people will say, well, the only reason why those stories are there is because the editor was, of color, black, brown, whatever, put whatever you want to put in there. And I'm thinking, but have you met a black editor? Like my friends that I know that edit stuff, they'll tell you in a minute, let me tell you what, you ain't fit to embarrass me on my job. So you better come with your A game. They're not even going to ask you. Like that. And I'm thinking, we, as much as we love to try to help each other come up, we still not going to just put any old thing out there, because we know what's writing on it. Like, we know what's writing on it. They will never let you edit another thing if you just let any old thing in. So you got to put out stuff that is brilliant. I mean, and it puts a lot of pressure,
And the other thing I see, especially with the Stoker nominations, since we're talking about that, these people that say, oh, she only got there because she's Latina. Okay.
Yes.
I'll tell you straight out. Did you read her fucking book?
Exactly.
Because both people that immediately come to my mind under that category blew the fucking shit out of the water, man. Amazing books. You have Children of Chicago. If you're talking shit about Children of Chicago, you don't understand writing. Because holy fuck. And then
that shit is the bomb.
V. Castro's killing it. Amazing shit. Like, so, or if you attack Haley,
Yes,
like,
exactly. And
Haley's doing shit no one can touch.
I'm talking about nobody.
Or even Stephen Graham Jones. People are like, oh, well, they liked this one book, so now they just give him this. And I'm like, I've been reading SGJ for so long that Flush Boy is still my favorite book. And everyone else is like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, you don't even understand what this man does, because he does different shit with every fucking book.
There's
Nothing's
a level
the same.
of brilliance there that just can't be touched, and you can't deny it. But I mean, and yes, I am very biased when it comes to Cena and when it comes to V, because they're my homies. But at the root of this, they are brilliant writers. Like, I love everything that they write. I love everything that Haley puts out. And so to reduce their making it to the final ballot, there's always a way to try to break marginalized creators down and to kind of justify, well, they only showed up there because of this. And that's just not true. Like, they bring their A game with everything. And when I say that they put all this effort into it, like, I don't know how many degrees Cena has. It's got to be about 99, like about 99 now. So I'm like, of course, she's brilliant. I mean, like, if you want to talk about it from does she know what she's talking about thing? Yes, she got the papers to back it up. And does she write well? Well, I mean, gosh, she's written 100 trillion thousand things. I mean, so you have to kind of, when you hear these excuses, of course, they make me feel terrible, but it's unfortunate that I'm so jaded that I've been around these parts for a long time. I kind of expect it. I hate that it's that way, but I expect it. I just get mad about hearing it though. But that's kind of what's being told. So yeah, we don't get it. You don't get a chance to fail that way. You don't get a chance to be mediocre at all.
I would even throw in Like Eric LaRocca had a book that just took the hell off, right? Things have gotten worse since we last spoke.
Yes,
there we go.
Things have gotten worse since we last spoke. Yes.
I will tell you straight out, this book was not for me. Okay? Like, it's not that I didn't enjoy it or didn't get it. I will never say a bad word about it because Eric fucking went out, swung for the fences, and knocked it out of the park. Just because it doesn't work for me personally, that doesn't make it a bad book. Like, I see the greatness in this. I get why everybody got it. And that's the attitude I feel is missing from horror. It's, well, that doesn't make me happy, and that's not for me, so it must suck. No. You suck for not getting it, or it just didn't work. And every single book in the entire world does not work for everybody. The most popular book in the world doesn't work for me, but that doesn't mean that.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. If you're talking about, I'm thinking me either. But I mean, have at it.
But I'm just saying,
you can have it.
Never going to be 100%. So that's not a reason to knock somebody down and say, oh, they only got it because of this. No, they got it because they worked their fucking asses off. They shot for everything. And they put in the work and got results, man. Hard work, determination, results.
They're saying that because they have to find some reason that person was better than they were. It doesn't matter how good any of their work is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It comes down to, I have to find this reason as to why. Like, oh, it was because, she was a woman, or she was a black woman, or she was Latina, they were gay, or as you brought up the whole idea of, oh, they're just checking boxes. I'm like, no, you aren't approaching what the issue is.
Right.
These people are being rewarded for their talent, being recognized for their talent, being rewarded for it. And you didn't do as well as they did. Not that you're mediocre. It's just that you weren't recognized because you weren't as good in the eyes of the judges as these people were. If there were
that's the answer. Yes.
Yeah, if there were a checking off the boxes thing, it would be like best black author, best gay author. That would be checking off the boxes as far as like, we're only going to have a category that's going to associate with this group, subgroup, subculture, whatever.
Exactly.
And that's what you see with a lot of these people, whether, we're talking about in academia, whether we're talking about in the sports world, any of that stuff. It's like, oh, well, they only wanted this person here because they were black, or because they were Asian, or because they were whatever. And you have people using that, or at least using that ammunition, or keeping that as their ammunition, because in a lot of cases, they can't deal with the fact that they didn't do well.
Right. And I think, the thing I find it really interesting about that whole situation is, my thing is, when you have a voting population, you are typically going to get candidates or works that population wants to see on that ballot. That's why they vote. They're going to put what they want on there. Now, the fact that all these marginalized creators' works got on that ballot meant that enough people voting saw some value in it. Now, does that happen every year? No. So in the years that it doesn't happen, and when the ballot is very, very homogenous in other ways, well, then, what do you have to say about that?
Right.
Like, they just happen to be put on there too. But then no, at that point it's, I have never seen any more posts about, these works should have made it on the ballot and they didn't. And I'm gonna, give this a big up. And I'm like, you're welcome to do that. But I felt some type of way about it because I was like, wait, so what you're saying is that the stuff that is on there is a mistake? But who do you even take that up with? Like every single person that voted. You could talk about that maybe the votes were, swayed or something, but see, you don't want to go down that slippery slope. Like, you just don't want to do that. So it was really disappointing because sometimes the posts come from people that you actually respect otherwise. And you go, you really going to just take this light from them? Do you know how hard they've worked for this? Do you know how long they worked for this? And you're just going to take it away talking about, well, this book should have been on there. Well, if you voted for it, that nobody else did. What are you going to do? If you really want to raise a ruckus about it, though, okay, let's not attack the actual after the votes have been done. Let's not attack the qualifications of who gets to vote in the first place. Let's go all the way to the beginning, and let's talk about the fact that in order to gain membership, active membership, to be able to vote, you have to have a certain number of professional sales. Right? Let's go all the way to the top of that. Not that the HWA has that requirement, but let's just talk about the problems, the obstacles in place that keep marginalized creators from making the pro sales. So if you want to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it from the root. That's the root. Because if you have the pro markets that aren't buying works from marginalized creators because they're saying the characters aren't believable, they can't connect with them. If that's what you have, well, then you have somebody's working. And this is the thing that I talk to a lot of my friends about. I think HWA, the website tells me that I've been a member for, I don't know, 1,000 years now. It's probably been more like 9 or 10. And I don't talk to a lot of people. I've just now met the requirements to apply for active membership. And so when I told somebody this once who wanted me to do something within the group, where I was like, I can't do that. And I'm not active. And they were like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, I'm so serious. And don't get me wrong. I understand that I make choices as to who I sell my work to. I make choices as to whether or not I want to write for a charity anthology. If I want to write for a small press that can only pay 2 cents a word. Like, I make those kind of choices because they're fun and I appreciate that. I will never turn down a charity anthology if the cause is one that I think is great.
And we appreciate having you on board.
Yes, I will always write for those. I will always write for the small presses because those are my people. Like, I'm in this group. But I understand that the pro paying markets, they don't always dig my work. And that's cool. I ain't everybody's cup of tea and I'm good with that. But if we're going to make an argument, I think that we have to kind of start there. And most people don't want to talk about that part, right? They don't want to talk about why the big heavy hitters don't take on work for marginalized creators. They take it from the 1 or 2 tokens that they feel like they want to uphold. And you know, for whatever reason, that's how it plays out. But if we're going to talk about the whole awards thing, we got to start from the very beginning. We can't really attack everything along the way because we haven't even addressed that top part yet. So yeah, if you want to complain about it, I'm with you. Okay, cool. Well, you want to bitch, let's bitch. But let's bitch from the beginning. Let's go from the beginning. Let's go to the top. What are you doing about that part? Like, what are you doing about that?
I also just think that there's just so much. Like, you and I aren't reading the same books every day. Me and Don aren't reading the same books every day. Me and whoever, you know, whatever. Like, nobody's reading all the same stuff. And so when bigger stuff is getting seen, of course, it's going to get more attention. So what are we doing on our level to push the smaller stuff that people might not know about?
Exactly.
Like, all of this requires work, and we all know that the people who love to bitch the most don't like to put in the work.
No, none. Usually that's zero work.
But I want to bring it back to the movie because that line that I just said basically hits this, right? Yeah. When you have Elizabeth and her father, like, that's the same thing. They don't want to put in work. They want people doing the work. They want the glamorous part of being a Southern belle or being this war general or whatever, right?
Oh my gosh, that's a great point. That is a great point. Yes.
But they don't want to do any work, like, at all. Like, that's the point, is to not do work and only have the good parts, right? But I've been conflicted. You have to understand, I love Jenna Malone. She's just one of those actresses that for some reason I just love everything she's in. And this was the first time that I was like, I don't know. And like, when I was watching it, I loved it. And then I started thinking about it, and then I was like, what the fuck? And then I've spent more time, I was researching, like, I was reading interviews with her about this. And now I'm on board 100%. Because I was reading, thanks to my friend Brian Savage, shout out to him. But she was told, like, you know, just research some alt-right people and watch them and do that. And when that clicked, I was like, oh shit, All right. Like, my biggest complaint with this role is that I think at the beginning she should seem super supportive and like be offering something great, because it's really weird to me that she does the I didn't say where I'm from. Like, that's all fucking weird. Like, why is this not raising red flags? Like, she should seem like the person Veronica wants to work with, but she does not, and that bothers me. But that's not her. That's the writing. So Jenna was saying that she sat down and was watching like videos of alt-right, and she said she got it very quickly, which is hilarious because, come on, you don't need a lot of research here.
No.
And but she was saying, like, I would watch for like a minute, very intently watching for a minute, and it felt like 10 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I feel that because I just see like clips of shit, and I'm like, why did you just waste 5 hours of my life? Oh, it was 2 minutes, But no, so like looking at it as the Southern Belle persona of the past, I didn't get Jenna's thing she was doing. When they threw in the alt-right, the current, like making me think, hey, this is today, this is who she is. That's when it clicked, and I was like, oh my God, Elizabeth is an amazing character. Like I already thought she was great, like when she's in Veronica's suite and the Jefferson suite, and like, using her toilet.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was so rude. It was so rude. That was so disrespectful. Oh my goodness.
And then taking the lipstick, of course. But like, I don't know, like I thought that was great already. But when she hit the alt-right thing, I was like, okay, I fucking get it now. So I'd kind of asked Don about this earlier, and I don't know, I don't want to get too far into this, but I was watching this comedian, and he was talking about how Leonardo DiCaprio is a huge black ally because he was willing to go on screen in Django Unchained and just be the biggest prick ever, and want you to see him get killed so badly. And I feel like Jenna kind of does this too. Jenna hits that high level of setting it up like you want to see this bitch get it, right? And just so my question to you guys was just like, how do you feel about that? Like do you think that that's an actual ally-ish thing to do, to put this out there, or like, is this comedian crazy or what? Because for me, it's like, it's still hard. Like, it's got to be hard. Like the comedian was saying, like you're nice to your coworkers and stuff, and then you're calling them the N-word every 5 seconds. Exactly. So I just wanted to get your opinions on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a setup, and no, that's not. Because I'm laughing so hard because I'm like, that sounds like something somebody would say when they try to make this make sense. And I mean, the logic is escaping me. I'm like, that's just not quite very logical there. And no, because ultimately, that's about them getting a role and cashing a check. And that's what they do. They are actors. They are actresses. Taking on a role where you are victimizing anybody is not being an ally, because if anything, there's always going to be people out there that are going to idolize your character for the opposite reason. They're going to be like, oh yeah, you got to kill them black people, you got to be the enslaver, you got to kill these queer people, you got to do that, and you're going to be my hero, and you're still good, and that character is going to be upheld as a standard, right? And so no, that's not. No, man, they can miss me with that one.
What about you, Don?
All right.
Don had more time to prepare for this. So. I want to say I don't necessarily agree. Like, I see what he was saying, but it's meant to be comedy, but I'm more fascinated by I'm just more fascinated by how we write things off or like try to assign meaning for other people to it. All right, go ahead.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to instead of Leo, I'm going to go with oh my gosh, I can't remember his name now. Kylo Ren.
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver.
Oh yes. Uh-huh.
Now, when he was in Black Klansman, there were two things that were going on. One, Adam Driver seems to be the most down guy ever when it comes to representing other causes or at least being an ally, right?
Uh-huh.
But even the character, there's a moment where he has that kind of question of his identity where he's like, I'm Jewish. I never thought about Jewish. I never gave a thought to it. I never really went around going like, oh, I'm a Jew or whatever. How he delivers a line talking about not thinking about his identity until he's around all these ridiculous racist caricatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, like, now I'm thinking about it. Like, I'm seeing where I fit in the world and who these people are. So you got that part of the character that Spike Lee writes.
Right.
And then there's the character that the character is playing, which, is the guy who's disguised as a dude who's pretending to be that.
Somebody had to say it.
So there's that moment where Isaiah Washington's character has to get Adam Driver's character out of trouble. So he throws a rock through the window because, he's undercover and he senses something bad is about to happen. So he has to get him out of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the part that comes up where Adam Driver runs out of the house with these other Klansmen, he grabs the gun from the one Klansman so his friend, his partner, doesn't get killed, takes the gun, starts firing at the car as it's leaving, and then just shoots out some of the worst racial slurs ever. And there was a joke going around on different parts of social media where it was like they showed the scene and then they had like a bunch of black people just randomly, pretending like they were part of the cast and crew. And it was like, Adam, that wasn't your line. Where did they come from? It's like that wasn't in the script. What is going on? So I think in a lot of ways, it comes down to performance. Yes, you can say like, "Oh, I'm going to be the most despicable person," because Samuel L. Jackson said the same thing when it came to playing Steven. He was like, "I wanted to play the most diabolical, nastiest black person ever. This was the worst villain I have ever played because of who Steven is." And he says, "I did not want anybody to like him." And I think taking that approach is you're showing, in some ways, a comical way, but you're showing how diabolical human beings can be with those intentions. So with the character Elizabeth, Jenna Malone's character, I wrote this down in my notes when it was like the most dangerous person in the antebellum period and in the Jim Crow period were white women. And I'm not saying that it's pejorative. I'm not saying that to exaggerate. It's just that because historically, they were the most protected individuals in American society, that any threat to them was a threat to the system.
Right.
Any threat to their safety and their security was a threat to the system.
Right.
And if you were accused by them of doing something, in a lot of ways, it could lead to your death. So when I saw her there, I immediately, I focused in on her. I'm like, that's the most dangerous person on the plantation. And Sarah Paulson's character, to give another comparison to just despicable characters. Sarah Paulson's character in 12 Years a Slave is just the same way, where, it's
exactly.
Epps is a horrible person, but Sarah Paulson's character is 20 times worse.
Yes.
And that's what unfortunately gets missed in that movie. Yeah, Epps is doing the sexual assault. He's violating people's bodies. He's doing any number of things, right? But he's doing it often at the behest of this woman who can't deal with, the whole thing of, oh, these people only got picked because they were black. She did not like Patsy because her husband was sexually attracted to this woman that was that he had control of.
Right.
And she could not wrap her head around it, that this man was going to somehow be attracted or quote unquote in love with a subhuman being when he should be in love with her. And the fact that he's only with her because of her standing in society. He's not with her because he loves her and wants her to be his wife. He's with her because this is basically a financial arrangement. This is an arranged marriage. This is not a thing of, I'm actually in love with this woman. We're going to spend our days together.
Exactly.
Which that whole dynamic in that film reveals so much about the antebellum period and so much about the slaveholder and enslaved laborer relationship. But what I think is also important to understand, because I cannot let this episode go by without mentioning this, the Southern Belle was complete bullshit. the Southern Belle, the Southern Belle thing was one of those. It was almost. I would just say it was basically a I'm sorry, not post reconstruction. It was reconstruction and post reconstruction invention. Not saying that there weren't slave mistresses on the plantation, but the identity that these women were chaste, these women were the symbol of purity, these women were guardians of the home and the moral protectors. I mean, they obviously, the women did dress like that from time to time. These women did exist, but I mean, as far as that identity of the Southern Belle. It became one of those things where it was like, oh, we're all going to be nice Southern belles. We're going to worry about our manners and we're not going to sweat and we're going to, keep our senses about us and we're not going to curse and things like that. It was complete hogwash. Like these women on these plantations were horrendous. Some cases, it's not Mary Chestnut. It might have been Mary Chestnut. Anyway, there are letters written by these women where they are excusing their husbands for sexually assaulting enslaved women. I mean, as far as what we would term sexual assault today, right?
Right.
Because there is no consent.
Right, there's no consent, yeah.
They are blaming the enslaved women for enchanting their husbands. Our husband, my husband, he can't control himself because, these savage women are able to bewitch him. And that's why he has to go out there and lay with them. I'm like, okay, honey, whatever you need to tell yourself, yourself, because that was one of the things that these women were not willing to talk with each other about, which was, their husbands were out having sex with other women outside their marriage. Those women were then having children through non-consensual sex. And then those children, in a lot of cases, were sold by the mistress because she did not want a reminder on that plantation of her husband's indiscretions.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's such a legacy, right? And that's how things went. Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it also shows. That's. Oh, no,
I was gonna say, I just hate the whole Southern Belle thing that got created and got expanded. Got created prior, but got expanded by Gone with the Wind. Because anytime somebody brings that up, I'm like, oh, fiddle-dee-dee, that's bullshit. And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, it's like, oh, she's saying fiddle-dee-dee because she's not supposed to curse. She's supposed to mind her manners. She's supposed to be nice and genteel. Said, no, these women were drinking. Some of these women were smoking. And some of these women were going off and getting with the bucks.
See, and that's the part that nobody want to talk about. But, being Southern, though, and being a Southern woman, that is a part of this Southern culture, though, that you kind of already know couldn't possibly be true, right? Because I'm like, man, look, I think the Southern women, we're raised to be all, sugar and spice, but that's not the case. Like it was a really big landscape here. And I think about even now, like, how are you going to be all sweet and it's hot as hell and you sweating and dripping all under your clothes? And I mean, you know what I mean? Like, why would you be just so, pristine? That doesn't even make sense. It just doesn't make doesn't make sense for this part of the country. It's like, man, no, that is not what was going down. But of course, history is always rewritten. It's always it can be turned around in order to create the narrative that the powers that be want to create. And of course, if you don't set Southern women up as people who are fragile and delicate and need to be protected, well, then you kind of throw out the whole excuse for terrorizing Black people, right? Because that just goes all out the window. So you got to kind of fix it up. You got to make it look good, right?
Oh yeah, because that goes into, speaking of the rewriting, that goes into the rewriting of that period and avoiding the real substantive discussions about what was taking place. And so when you have places like Well, I'm just going to say the whole South because every I don't know if Louisiana has done it, but I'm sure the state legislature has tried. But I know that who's the governor now, Landrieu, would veto it if he could. But Oklahoma, Texas, on over to East, and I'm excluding New Mexico because they haven't done it. Arizona has, but they pushed all these in the state legislature or within their school districts these bans on talking about this in an academic environment. And in the state of Texas, they're even threatening to get rid of. Well, I mean, you're there, so you know, trying to attack tenure for people like, if they talk about this, we're going to review tenure year by year instead of every 6 years.
Yes. Oh,
I'm like, okay, you wanna have your schools de-accredited? Go ahead.
Yep. Well,
and it's not going to be good.
Well, but they really might want that. I mean, because ultimately the goal is to just keep people from being able to be enlightened and actually educated, right? It's okay if you just pretend to teach people stuff. But when you start teaching them how to actually think for themselves and to assess what they're being told, I mean, critical thinking is what's under attack here, really. At the root of it, because as long as you can keep people ignorant, you can control them better. So they might really... Yeah, so I mean, I'm right here. Like, these folks, they really might want the schools to be decredited. Like, they don't place a whole lot of stock on education when it's other people getting the education anyway, or when their constituents are the ones that are being educated. They don't really care about it that much.
So I have one final thought on the film, and that is, if they had just taken down this statue, Elizabeth might have survived this shit. But they had to have it. And that's what happens.
Right.
Well, the statue was on private land. I will admit. Oh, speaking of statues, last year, 2022 now. Last year, the the good old boys out here lost again. I mean, maybe they'll put up a statue to them losing the fight over to have a statue. So
maybe
I'd support that.
General Nathan Bedford Forrest, the founder of the KKK, had his monument removed from Memphis, and then they had to dig up his remains and the remains of his wife that were in the area because the city of Memphis sold the park to some private company, and they're like, we don't want this shit on our land. Get out of here.
Oh, well, I mean, you know.
So. I mean, I'm saying that's what they probably should have put in the press statement, because that's what I would have put in there. It was like, get this trash out of my yard.
Right.
So it was funny because they were covering on the news and like, well, they have to exhume the body, but since the memorial was taken off of the top of the memorial marker was taken off the top of the of where the body was interred, we believe that rain and other types of debris may have leaked in and have ruined the remains. I'm thinking, like, he's been dead for how long? I don't think we're trying to preserve his remains.
I mean,
it's good.
Because it's okay. It's okay. It's pretty.
Should have put him in
at this
Tupperware.
point. Oh man.
All right. Do either of you have anything else about this film before we move on?
No, I guess we should go and move on. Yeah. I'm looking at like, damn, 2.5 hours. People are going to hate us.
This has been a great episode. I'll say that straight out. Anybody who disagrees, well, you're just a bunch of racist dicks. All right. So I couldn't resist. So let's bring this to movies that people should watch if they enjoyed this film. I just want to throw out, I always do a double feature, and Beloved, I think it was 87, 88. Okay. I think that would be fucking amazing with this. And I really went first so that I could write down some of you guys' suggestions. So go ahead.
Well, I ditto Beloved. I think that, because I do think that there's a big, huge void with historical horror, and especially that talks about Black people and centers Black women's experiences. But a more contemporary movie that I would suggest is Us by Jordan Peele. I think that's another film that's kind of gotten the short shrift because it's always being compared to Get Out, but it's a whole different thing. And so I think that what I really especially love about Us is how it centers Black women and their motherhood experiences. So it's something that I think that people should really see. So my list is really short. I only had 2. Always
All
say
right.
beloved for everything.
Siri, call the police.
It was
All right, Don,
Ophelia, damn
you're
it.
up.
All right. I'm all over the place with these, but because there were so many elements in this movie that I could say are represented in other films as well. So I will start off with just on my list in no particular order. The Lie, Don't Let Go is a more recent film, and it kind of has that same little time jumping, or at least what I perceived was going to be time jumping, but this movie kind of does time jumping with it. Ready or Not, as far as the whole idea of turning the tables. Becky as well. The Purge series. Invisible Man from, what was it, 2020 when it came out? So around the same time?
Yes.
Another movie I'm never not going to recommend, which is His House. Came out on Netflix last year.
Gotta love that movie.
The reboot of Candyman.
Yes.
Skeleton Key, Ma, the Nate Parker Birth of a Nation, not the D.W. Griffith version, because you still get in that same thing, a lot of the overlap. 12 Years a Slave, I mentioned. Hush. Glory, I would definitely include as well, for different reasons. I'm not going to get into it. Black Klansman, one, because you show the relationship between Black women as well as white women with their respective movements. So with white women being complicit in white supremacy, and you see Black women being part of the civil rights movement, with two characters in that film that were invented. They were never actually really there. Promising Young Woman, another one. Oscar Michaw's Within Our Gates. It should still be on YouTube or Vimeo or somewhere. And last, certainly not least, I'm sorry, Django Unchained, which was also mentioned. And then last but not least, because it came up in a discussion with my daughter today, because she asked me, Daddy, do you like the color purple? And I said, yes. I like the actual color, the movie, and the book. And she's like, it's a movie? I said, yeah. I said, you can't see it yet because there's going to be some stuff that I can't necessarily explain until you get older. And she's like, well, let me watch it, then you can explain it to me. I said, no. It's not, in a couple more years, I'll let you watch it, and then we can sit down and talk about some things. But if you want to talk about a movie about, I'm sure you've seen it, James.
Yes.
But if you want to talk about a movie that talks about a film that was way ahead of its time when talking about the empowerment of women, empowerment of Black women and Black female unity. Oh my God.
You're right. I didn't think
oh my gosh.
You're right. Perfect. Yes.
Just the whole scene where Suge Avery is trying to teach her how to smile. That still gets teaching her to not cover up her smile, I should say.
Right.
But the whole idea of letting her know, like, you're a beautiful woman. And she's like, no, I'm ugly. She's like, no, you are a beautiful woman. Just even now, it almost brings a little lump in my throat, because
it does.
Think about all the people that needed to see that. And I remember how badly people talk shit about Whoopi Goldberg back in the 80s. And even in the 90s, they're like, oh, why would you want to have this ugly, nappy-headed woman in this movie? And why would you want to do this? I'm sitting there like, why are you people saying this about her?
Exactly.
And it was the same thing, like Grace Jones, the same thing, like, oh, she's too dark. She's not pretty. I'm like, that is a beautiful woman.
Oh my gosh, badass. Do you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Oh. Especially in Boomerang, like with the way she was acting. I was sitting there. I think I was 14 or 15 when that movie came out. I was like, I don't know how I should think about what this woman just said, but I think she unlocked something in me.
Oh, honey, yes. I'm trying to tell you. I was like, okay, so yeah, baby, it'll make you question all kind of things.
I was sitting there because I already liked her in A View to a Kill. I was like, oh, she's a great character in this, and I loved her in Conan the Barbarian. And all the stuff I saw her in, I always loved her in. But then I would hear people say things like, oh, you don't want a dark-skinned woman, or you don't want this. Oh, she looks too much like a man. And I remember
where?
And that was my question. And I remember they even addressed, I don't know if they made this specific for her to answer her critics in that movie, but I remember her talking about what it means to be a woman, because there's this conversation between her character and Olivia Dabo's character where she says, well, how do you get a man? She's like, you walk up and you take him. And she's like, how do you? She's like, you take him. If I want a man, I'm going to take. And I'm just thinking about the assertiveness, the sexual aggressiveness there, the way that she's kind of like, nah, this character might be a character in the movie, but I'm playing myself.
I think she really was.
I just loved, like, oh God, I'm going to go back and watch that movie tomorrow. Because just that one scene just sells you on it. He's like, I see a man and I take him. What do you mean take him? I take him. He's mine. I'm like, are you going to tell Grace Jones no? No.
Right, no. I wouldn't tell her no. Man, let's go. You sure right. Let's go. Let's go, little mom.
Oh, well, you mentioned Boomerang, so I guess we've come to the end of the road.
Boo.
So, Rhonda, I want to kick it back to you. You want to tell everybody where they can find you online, to follow you on social media, or purchase your the anthologies you're currently in and all that good stuff?
And gas you up?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Gas me up, because I'm always on Twitter haunting that place. At R. Jackson Joseph. And I don't do very well with like promoing all my stuff, but if you go to Twitter and hit me up, you'll find stuff I'll be talking about a little bit, because other people make the posts, right? And I can just forward them. I'm trying to get better at that. So, I'm always sharing everybody's stuff. I'm like, let everybody buy everybody's books, buy all of this stuff.
Exactly.
Yes, cool. Because I'm an avid reader. I want to see this stuff because I'm going to buy it too.
I love it.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. Y'all are awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here. Absolutely. All right, so I guess that wraps it up for this week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I don't know if I can trust you.
Well, we'll find out next week here at thenecronama.com.